Okay, welcome back. We are ready to start with session 3. Now it's never easy to come back after the coffee break. Lunch break, sorry. So if you could please take your seat, and we are starting in 1 minute. I think Oscar was using it. So I hope you enjoyed your lunch. We have a very rich program in the afternoon, like this morning, so we better start. Thank you, Oscar. Okay, so welcome back. We are about to start with session 3. After 2 exciting sessions, the first one really set the scene on the deployment of AI in city, and the second session where we went a bit more in depth in different use cases. This third session is going to discuss the enabling condition for the use of AI. So enabling the adoption of AI for urban development. What we are going to do in this session is to look at the key enablers that allow city to move from pilot to scalable, impactful AI use, such as governance or data, ethical framework, the funding models, the partnership with research and private sector, and the capacities. So we already touched upon some of this topic in the morning, but the idea now is to have a more focused discussion on the enabling condition. Before moving into the panel, also for this session, we are really glad to have a very high-level speaker that will provide the scene setting to set the basis for the conversation. Unfortunately, our speaker couldn't be here with us in person, so he's connected online. And we are really glad to have Lawrence Liu, who is the director of AI Singapore, and is going to explain us in particular which measure, which action is Singapore putting in place to enable the adoption of AI. So Mr. Liu, I hope you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Okay, please. So you have the floor, and thanks very much for joining this event. We are really glad to have you, and you have the floor and 10 minutes for your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So, okay, yeah, there goes. So, so my name is Lawrence. I'm the director for AI innovation in AI Singapore. And for the next couple of minutes, I'll share what we have been doing in Singapore and how some of our programs are affecting or helping our Smart Nation initiatives. Next slide. So AI Singapore, we were launched back in May 2017, and we are 100% funded national R&D program for AI. And there are several mission statements that we have, which is to build deep national capabilities in AI, create social economic impacts, grow the talent, accelerate the AI ecosystem. So I think over the last 8 years, we have been around for 8 years, we have achieved most of this. And this is one of the first programs where the Singapore government has specifically funded an entity like AI Singapore to closely collaborate with the government, the academia, and the industry. And I'll show you some examples, just one example of the program, and from there, explain what are some of the necessary conditions for success of AI in the urban sector. Next. So we are a 100% funded government entity, but when I was asked to come into this program, my task was very specific. They wanted me to lead a program to help the industry to actually build real-world projects. So when we started in 2017, I had a very small core team of like 4 or 5 people. But over the last 8 years, we have grown to a team of about 70. And we have completed more than 300 AI projects across multiple sectors, of which smart cities is just one sector. And with these 300 projects, we have used it to train real-world AI engineers, providing real-world skills to help build the necessary talent, all right, to be able to build smart cities. And importantly, besides training AI engineers, you see this number 250,000 completed AI for everyone. This is also a very key number because I believe one of the enabling factor to build a successful AI adoption or acceptance in an organization or country is AI literacy. And this AI for everyone is the way that we have managed to create AI literacy for large number of people in Singapore. So some of the real-world projects that we have delivered over the last 8 years includes projects in healthcare for the dental, for example, a dental X-ray scan, and then we can determine the state of the teeth. Life science, call centers for speech to text, lots of finance for our government investment corp, GIC, Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund, and for MNCs who are based in Singapore. People like Sompo, which is a Japanese insurance company, IBM, and Continental. So as our program will support companies that have a presence in Singapore, engineering presence, right? Not just a sales office, but an engineering presence, because whatever we co-create with them, they will have to take over from us and then go into deployment. Next. So I'll just share 2 examples of urban solutions that AI solutions that we built the last 8 years. These are use cases which we have the permission of the project sponsor to share. So Sabana Jurong, they have been deploying urban technology for many years in Singapore. They were the original builders of the Singapore's public housing estates, and parts of it was spun off to form Sabana Jurong. And for this particular case, this came around 2018. This was a 2018 project. 2018, yeah. And some of the housing estates were getting very old. And in Singapore, 80% of us live in high-rise flats. So there are lots of lifts in all these housing estates. Like 25,000 lifts across 10,000 public housing blocks. So with the lifts, some of them getting very old, some of them are in their like 10 or 15 years of operations, it started to fail more and more often. And the challenge was, how can they build a monitoring system to predict which lift is likely to fail, therefore they can do proactive maintenance on it. So this was something that we built the AI systems with them. They had implemented IoT sensors, streaming the data to a central point for collection. And then we built a model. So we were able to basically predict up to 7 days ahead when a lift may fail, so that they could actually take a proactive solution. So this was something that we have built for them. And this was way back in 2018. They probably went to production in 2019 or something. Next. This is a more recent use case and also very common today. You remember when we built this several years ago, it was not common. Today, it is very common. This was the use of computer vision to improve construction safety, especially when workers are working in high-rise conditions. We want to make sure that they are properly buckled up. In construction sites, they have their safety helmets and safety vests on, and so on and so forth. So the Housing and Development Board is Singapore's public housing authority. So they came to us and we collaborated with them to actually build this solution where we use computer visions. Typically, these are cameras mounted on some of the supervisors' helmets or on site in various locations, and they will monitor the activities. So monitoring of safety is critical. We want to make sure that there's a safe environment for all the construction workers. So this this is actually one of the very successful projects. In fact, they did 2 projects with us related to the same construction safety. One is identification of the safety helmets, the vests, and so on. Another was actually whether at the end of the day, the debris, the construction sites where they were working, were they properly I guess, packed and cleaned up? Because, you know, when things are not properly clean, if people were to walk, they may trip and fall and get into injuries. So at the end of the day, places are required to be tidied up as part of SOP. So from these 2 projects, the AI team that actually worked on this with HDB actually spin off to form a startup, and today they are actually doing very well with many projects from not just construction industries in Singapore, but in the region and Middle East. Next. So it is one of the reasons why our projects like this, many of them are successful. It's not about finding the best researchers, finding that can build the AI model. It's about working with the industry. It's about bringing together a team of very passionate engineers to work on the problem statement and to solve it. So typical of Singapore funded programs, we co-fund these projects for the industry to basically nudge them, right, to accelerate, to get them to get started on AI much faster. So we co-fund half of the cost, right? We'll put in 150,000, they'll put in 150,000 in cash and in kind. And if we approve their project, we will actually form an engineering team to work on the project for them full-time for 6 months. This team will include 1 AI mentor and 4 to 6 apprentices. So this team is dedicated to work on this project full-time. They don't do anything else. So it's very unlike a research team where a professor and researchers may take on an industry project, but they will still do 2 or 3 other projects, including publishing papers, including teaching, and so on and so forth. But this team that we have in AI Singapore is 100% dedicated to work on the industry problem for 6 months. And why are we doing this? 1, we want to get the problem solved for the project sponsor. 2, I'm using this project to train budding engineers, budding AI engineers, people who are passionate about becoming an AI engineer, but they may not have studied computing science or AI in the university, but they have enough skills to get into our program and then basically reskill or plus skill to become AI engineers. So these AI apprentices, it's the AI apprenticeship program that they join. They have to spend up to 9 months with us on a full-time basis, and they have to quit their jobs. So, and these are all graduates. We have people who have degrees, who have masters, we have PhDs who actually join the program. And to get into the program, they have to pass a technical assessment. So basically, we test them whether are they at the level of a junior AI engineer. Now, you may ask, if they are already a junior AI engineer, why are they not in an AI role? Very simple. Most of the time, these people will not get selected by the HR of many companies because these people are accountant, a lawyer, someone who may not have a computing skills, someone who do not have 2 to 3 years of AI experience, someone who does not have an AI degree or a PhD. So a lot of the HR will basically filter off these people and they won't get selected. But these people actually have the skills because they have self-taught themselves AI and machine learning for many years. And they want to get into this industry. So this apprenticeship program was a way for us to bring these people into our program, give them 3 months of deep skilling training, and then put them on a real-world project. So at the end of this 9 months, it becomes a win-win-win for everyone. The company gets a project built at a highly subsidized rate. we train Singaporeans who are passionate to become AI engineers to be able to land a role. And in fact, my placement rate is nearly 100%. All of our graduates will find an AI role within 3 to 6 months of graduation. And obviously, we meet our KPIs that's been given to us. So this program has been highly successful, where we have combined the apprenticeship program with a real-world project leading to real-world outcomes. Next. So like I've mentioned, what surprised a lot of people is the fact that only 20% actually have a computer science degree. The rest of the apprentices, they comes from the sciences, the physics, the maths, engineering, arts and social science, accounting, banking. And actually this is the secret sauce of why the program is so successful, because solving a business problem is not about algorithms alone. It's about understanding the problem domain. It's about being able to talk the same lingo as the project sponsor. So if, let's say, we have a project, for example, in the built environment, if I have an engineer who is a former civil engineer who's in this program, he or she can understand what the project sponsor is talking about, and they can then therefore develop a better solution together. So this domain expertise that we have been able to bring into the program, and then added training on AI, has made this combination so powerful. So over the last 8 years, we have trained close to 500 Singaporeans. It's a slow, expensive process, but the fact that 100% of our graduates are employed in the AI role has shown that this model works. Next. So in building all of this, right, one of the things that we realize is that we need a way to understand the AI readiness of organizations that come to talk to us, because we get so many requests that we cannot say no to everyone. Neither can we say yes to everyone. And for those who we say no to, we cannot just say, no, you do not meet our minimum requirements to support you in the project. We have to have a way to say, well, because you are AI unaware, your organization is not AI ready yet. You still need to do this. Therefore, please go back, go and go through the AI for Everyone program that is free, or go and talk to this other organization that we refer them to become digital. Because some organizations approach us, they are not even digital yet. So with the AI Readiness Index, it gives us a very easy way to identify very quickly where they are in terms of their AI maturity. And this is a very simple 12-question survey, very high level, just to get a sense of where the organizations are. And within 10-15 minutes, they will complete the survey, and then we will be able to classify them into whether they are AI unaware, aware, ready, or competent. In fact, this AI Readiness Index is part of the AI for SME portal that we did in OECD GPay as part of the Innovation and Commercialization Working Group under the AI Adoption for SME project, which I chair. So we contributed this AI Readiness Index to that effort. And today is actually part of the AI for SME portal that is actually running in Singapore, Poland, Serbia, France, and I think there are a few other countries that are implementing the portal. Next. So like I said, it's only 12 questions. And this 12 questions actually, in a way, is the key things that you need to think about when you want to implement AI solution, whether is it urban solution or not. But when you're thinking about AI, these are the 12 questions that you need to ask. And these 12 questions did not come from an academic exercise. These 12 questions, every question has a war story behind. It is what we learned over 3 or 4 years, working with nearly 300 to 400 companies, and we developed this after that, because when we realized that some of this was not there, the project had a lot of problems. So from there, we actually developed these 12 questions to basically try to preempt some of the potential problems. At least we know what are the potential problems upfront, and therefore can then better address those. So organization readiness, ethics, governance, business value, data readiness, infrastructure readiness. So if you ask which are the most important one, I would say number one is actually AI literacy. You need to make sure everyone is AI literate, AI aware. Without literacy, you will get pushbacks. People will be afraid of AI. And number two would be business use case. Never do an AI project because it's the CEO pet project or the CEO asks you to do. All the AI projects that we do and we approve have to be justified by ROI. What is the return on investment for the project? Because we are spending taxpayers' money. So nearly every project can be quantified in terms of dollars and cents. We actually ask. So we will not approve a project if the company cannot justify the ROI to us. Next. So over the last 8 years, besides the apprenticeship program, we've developed a lot of other programs, including, like I mentioned, the AI for Everyone. When we developed the AI for Everyone, it wasn't because the government said that, oh, Lawrence, you have to develop this. It was because, and this is the reason why I say AI literacy is so important. It was because in working with many project sponsors, we found that a lot of the workers, the employees, were very afraid of AI. They were pushing back. And therefore, that means, one, they are not keen to do projects with us, so I cannot meet my KPI. Or if they are doing project with us because it's from management, we are getting a lot of resistance on the ground. And therefore, we felt that education, AI literacy is so important to make sure that the project is successful. So that was developed. And along the way, we developed a lot of other programs, AI for kids, AI for students, and so on and so forth. Really looking at a multi-year, 10, 15 years horizon to make sure that I want to get a good steady stream of STEM-ready students into my AI apprenticeship program. Next. So that is a snapshot of the programs we have and how we in AI Singapore have managed to get our built environment to step up, to accelerate their use of AI in building up urban solutions, combining grants to actually incentivize them to start doing AI early, and finding very passionate individuals who are willing to quit their jobs to come in, and we will pay them a stipend, a small stipend for 9 months to be trained to work with us. So we have cost-effective engineers who can work on these projects. And at the end of 9 months, basically a project is delivered to the customer, and then we get talents, human capital that is being trained. So this combination is very powerful, and I welcome countries to come and talk to us if you are interested to learn more about it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu.
Thank you
very much for this very rich presentation, for highlighting the importance of human capital, of the team as a success factor, and also for this AI Readiness Index and the link with SMEs. We actually have our colleague Lucia here that will provide the summary of the session at the end. Is in charge of the division working with SMEs, so maybe you will have some feedback on that. Before going to the panel, I would like to see if there is any question for Mr. Liu in the room. No? Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Liu. I hope you can stay with us, because after the panel, there will be a discussion. So now let's move to the panel. It's a very rich and very diverse panel. We have 3 city representatives, 2 research institutions, 1 national government, and 1 private sector representative. In particular, I'm happy to present Marie Bernard, who is a digital project manager, NAN Métropole France, Jürgen Spanov, that I hope I'm pronouncing well, manager, digital strategy and governance at District 9, City of Ghent, Belgium, Elena De Ambrogio, Department of European Funds, and the city of Turin, who is joining online. David Kim, Associate Researcher Fellow at the Korea Research Institute for Human Settlement. We have Thomas Cotinet, the Director of Ecolab at the Ministry of Environment in France. We have Martin Memel, Head of Smart City Living Lab, German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. And finally, we have Federica Fernandez, CEO of Urban Lee. So let's start immediately with a representative, with Marie Bernard, representative from Nantes Metropole. So Marie, the focus of this session is really on the enabling environment and enablers for the adoption of AI. So could you please tell us in your experience, which were the key enablers for Nantes Metropole to move to concept to a practical implementation and impactful implementation of AI projects? Marie.
Yes, thank you. Well, talking about enablers, there are certainly many, but if I understand time is limited, I have to pick just one or focus on one. I think at the core of our local AI, there is local data governance. And we are fortunate in France, it's been already 10 years since we have had a bill for digital republic, la loi pour une république numérique. And boy, we went right in at Nantes with this, this push to go to open data and so on and so forth. And talking about how we managed local governance, we put in place very early on for local communities in France a chief data officer, and this is a role that now, well, started as core data, but now encompasses AI governance. Maybe you can switch already to the next slide. There's only two, so this one is more interesting. But why is my colleague CDO a pivotal person in our organization? Because we are a 10,000 civil servant organization, and when we speak to our colleagues, there are about as many use cases for AI right now. Everyone wants to do their job, whether it's water and waste management, whether it's urban planning, dialogue with citizens. Everyone has a very compelling use case to put in some AI and, with this thread, try to see if there's data involved and so on. So we start from the CDO. She makes sure that all these people, whether they are data producers, they are just mere data users within an organization, whether they are project sponsors for a potential AI use case, she makes sure that we all work within the framework that we designed in 2019, which is the charter for the data charter, which has now been expanded to include all the elements around AI, and that they know that this is ruling our entire data lifecycle, including obviously AI. So we've mentioned that earlier today, that data was at the core, so we're not going back to this. Maybe just quickly, two examples. We've had in Nantes a very strong commitment to delivering exceptional quality geolocalized data. We've had also a mention of geodata this morning, so I'm not going to emphasize the role for a range of AI-powered projects, but it's our IT department with our CDO that is leveraging this data for production, for leverage, for storage, and managing as well AI across the metropolitan area. So we have this sort of in-house maturity to address subjects. So for example, when it comes to should we do our urban mapping project by ourselves? Should we partner? Should we buy something? Then we already have in store a range of colleagues that are aware and able to have very high level discussions. And maybe just if I have 1 minute more, we have a very interesting use case now with global health data. Global health is not just data that is about how people are doing in terms of medical data, but also environmental data. What if air is polluted, water quality, and so on. So we are bringing all of this together, and that requires using also very, very sensitive data, because personal data here is at its core. And it's also our CDO who was instrumental to bridge various requirements of data governance, data license to reuse. If it's a partner that it's a private partner, how are we going to license access to data so that local data governance and local AI is developed? in a way that really matches our requirement, legal compliance issue, the cyber security, and so on and so forth. So this really is sort of a blueprint for further joint projects moving forward, right?
Thank you very much, Marie. Very interesting. We'll come back to you in the second round. Now let's move to Jürgen Spanov from the city of Ghent in Belgium. So we know that Ghent has taken a very important step in introducing AI in public services, trying to respect privacy and ethics. So if you can tell us a little bit more how Ghent has been doing this and how you're planning maybe to develop a coherent strategy around this to ensure transparency, accountability, and citizen trust about AI. You have the floor.
Thank you. As a starting point, your question is probably important for all the cities here, I think. In order to resolve that challenge, I think we have to learn from each other. And I want to give the key tip towards other cities: don't reinvent the wheel. We have to collaborate and learn from those who are working towards the same goals. So that's good that we are here together in this event, but also in other events. But about responsible AI, a lot of work has been done by our region, in the Flemish region. We are involved at the city of Ghent as one of the key actors. And the Flemish government wrote also a playbook on how to deploy AI in a responsible way. Also within Eurocities, a lot of fellow cities, with the city of Turin and Elite, maybe Elena will also discuss about that. But they did great work in co-creating a paper on ethics, how to take ethics into account in your innovation efforts. So that was also a good paper. And we had a recent paper from the OECD also, governing with AI, of course. So tooling and metrics become much more available. And the same go for fail and learnings of others. Also in an MIT report of 2025, there was a report about that state that most Gen AI fails to move beyond the pilot phase because it's approached from merely a technical point of view. And I think we have to look then more than just to technical things. We have to look at policy and people sides. And that's what I want to explain in our governance model, what you see here on the slide. We have to take a lot of things and not only the technical things. So first of all, you need strategic capacity. Also this morning, I think in the Middle East, you also mentioned it about the strategic capacity. Also in Ghent, our AI goals and our AI use cases are linked to our digital strategy. It's not an island of dreams, but it's anchored in a digital transformation roadmaps. In business roadmaps, every roadmap, environment, education, they have digital roadmaps, and the AI use cases have to be anchored in that roadmaps. Within that strategy, there are also clear AI goals that allows us to track progress of our deployment. So it is on that level that responsible AI framework resides. Then secondly, organizational capacity is also very important, and that's what you see on this slide. We established a governance process that makes it clear on an operational level how AI ideas came up, who's responsible, and what are the different steps we have to take. It all starts with an inspiring phase. It's an inspiring phase. All stakeholders are invited to think about potential solutions in every policy domain, in environment, in education, in every policy domain. We developed a methodology to do that, to get inspired them. This is before the pilot phase. And then the best are turned into a business case, a lightweight business case. And then in the third step, you can go to a limited pilot phase with a fixed budget. Only in a fourth phase, we really go to investment to give more money to it. But it's important that we focus early on the viability and needed cases. So you see in the different steps, we really think about which case is linked with strategy and which case is more viable than other cases. In this process, we also look to security and ethical principles. It's more like a privacy by design process. From the beginning, we are thinking about privacy, about ethical frameworks. And we do that by our role and the DPO, and the DPO is responsible for that. Thus, he makes an advice to a steering committee where the CEO and the CIO of the city of Ghent decides to comply or explain deviation from the advice of the DPO. I think this is important because You hear a lot of times from cities that they cannot innovate because they want to comply on every law. I think you don't need to comply always. You can also explain why you don't comply, and that's the responsibility of your CEO or CIO. And then thirdly, human capacity is also very important to support this all. We need to take into account people's side. Aside from open courses for prompting and learning AI for personal productivity, it is also about increasing awareness and ownership on the topic by an e-learning course we created about risks and burdens of AI. We did that in the city of Ghent, as well as creating this AI competence center so that everyone can get proper support in developing cases. So it's a combination of tech, policy, and people that make a decent AI combination, I think.
Thank you so much. We'll come back to you in the second round. And now we'll move to the third city that we have our panel, the city of Turin, with Elena De Ambrogio, who is online. So Elena, we know that Turin has been very active in the national and European sphere as a testbed for emerging technology with initiatives like Torino City Lab and City Next. So can you tell us a little bit more in particular how the city managed to attract financial and technological resources that are necessary to move AI project from pilot to the full implementation? You have the floor, Elena.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry not to be there with you, but I try to contribute somehow. So as you mentioned, Turin has a specific policy started up in 2018, which is called the Torino City Lab, now evolved since 3 years with his House of Emerging Technology. And these initiatives which really put the city at the benefit of R&D and startup have been the city's main accelerators for applied innovation, even in the area of artificial intelligence. So, for instance, over the past 3 years, we have supported more than 30 experiments combining AI, 5G, and IoT, always in real urban context and always with the aim to answer to specific city challenges, working with startups, SMEs, and research centers. So, for instance, we have seen in real AI used for urban safety, for instance, developing sensors that detect pedestrians and communicate even with autonomous vehicles, or for crowd management applied to big events with analyzing flows anonymously during large events and also helping the city to plan huge events. Or again, predictive maintenance also applied to industry context to prevent water leaks or improving energy efficiency in factory. And more in more, let's say, important challenges for the city. So in health and inclusion, so for instance, using intelligent drones to transport blood and organs between several hospitals and trying to manage and to manage well the important material to be transported. These are only some examples, and these are not prototypes in labs. They are real pilots in the city, which are tested by the municipality together with sometimes public utilities, with researchers, with businesses, and more with the community of citizens. We really think that it is important also as a let's say a technology alphabetization for citizens to understand how responsibly AI can change how city services can be deployed and how they can find benefits, or how they have to understand how to use these in their real life. This is our model, so experimentation as part of a public policy. But to move from pilots to implementation, of course, we are building a strategy. That's why we are working more and more into international network, also to learn from cities as we have just listened. And our strategy should connect innovation, continuity, and capacity. So first of all, it is important to take evidence to make impact. So every project we co-develop includes measurable indicators: cost reduction, inclusion, sustainability, service quality. Results are monitored and shared openly, both internally in the city and with the key stakeholders, in order to create the evidence that can convince us to invest more and which can also convince investors to scale. Second, continuity and skills. So we use the data experiments to train, to involve municipal staff so that innovation becomes part of our organization, not an external service. Third, of course, partnership and alignment. We try to align municipal efforts with the national and European programs, and of course, funding coming from the national and European programs. And of course, again, collaboration platforms at the national and international level. This integrated approach, of course, supports during digital transition from cloud migration, interoperability, data governance to cybersecurity, and it is coordinated through an internal steering committee that ensures coherence among different departments. In parallel, we are opening stable modular streams where AI can be adopted progressively and sustainably. For instance, a city CRM is being deployed to improve service management and enable smart triage and predictive support for citizens, while an urban digital twin will integrate data, AI-powered data in the future on mobility, maintenance, and environment, for instance, to support planning and decision-making. The goal is not to deploy AI or Gen AI everywhere, but to integrate it where it truly creates value for the city administration and for the citizens. Also, to support the business environment to grow and the research to grow, to attract talent and let us help the territory growth. So City Next is a whole has shown that when experimentation is, let's say, structured, ethical, and evidence-based, it can evolve into a continuous capability, turning innovation from an event into a system. That's our current model, and I think that we can really gain from your experience to grow together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena. Thank you so much. You mentioned digital twin, and this also will be the focus of the next intervention. Our next speaker is really David Kim from the Korean Research Institute for Human Settlement. So David, your research highlights the importance of digital twins, spatial big data, and national spatial information policy. So can you tell us what national investment or standard are providing most effective in helping Korean city build the data infrastructure needed to adopt AI at scale? You have the floor, David.
Yeah. Before to utilize AI to solve urban problem in South Korea, just beginning, the central government, local government, and cities are recognizing the importance of AI. But there's no like a concrete social agreement or regarding which public investment should be first. However, Korea, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transportation is now heavily investing on national R&D to introduce AI to urban planning and policy. This R&D project launched in 2022 and is scheduled to run by 2027. Focus on data collection, data analysis, generative model development, prediction model development, service platform development. So this project is led by Korea Research Institute for Human Settlements with participation from various universities and companies. To ensure effective implementation of this research and development, 3 pilot project cities, Cheonan, Busan, and Damyang, have been selected. And this R&D is being conducted by applying the AI technology, which are under development, to each local government urban planning process. So upon completion, all findings will be available to central government agencies, local government, private companies, and general public free of charge. However, additional solutions will be needed to secure appropriate hardware and update data. So furthermore, in the final phase of this research and development, a roadmap for future AI urban planning will be developed, detailing the infrastructure elements required. However, given the rapid changes in AI technology, the long-term and mid-term roadmap is unlikely to be effective. So we are going to present short-term and mid-term roadmap and outline the elements necessary for local government to implement AI urban planning.
Thank you so much, David. Our next speaker is now time to also hear from, and we are really glad to have Thomas Cotinet from the director of Ecolab from the Ministry of Environment of France. So Ecolab develops a data platform, living labs, and territorial AI demonstrator to help local government innovate with AI. From your perspective, what has been the most effective enablers in terms of data standard or guidelines or partnership with a startup to help French cities in the adoption of AI?
Thanks, Stefano. Yes, our mission is to put the data and AI at the service of public action, supporting cities and regions as they adapt to climate change. Based on our, if you can switch the slide, please. Yes, based on our Ecolab experience, 5 pillars have proven essential for helping cities to adopt AI for their climate change. First pillar, the strong data governance is a foundation. We also are the national administrator for data and AI in the field of sustainable transition. And we work to standardize and to improve the quality of green data across France. A platform like ecology.datagouv.fr provides cities with reliable, interoperable data sets. We enable them to train and deploy AI models based on consistent, reusable information. It also allows them to share the same indicators to follow the advancement of their green transition. Second pillar, to launch a momentum, we need targeted financial support. So we launch a funding program dedicated to territorial AI demonstrators, so 40 million euros with 20 million euros of subsidies across multiple areas, such as energy renovation, water management, water monitoring. This funding supports practical high-impact AI projects such as Amelia in Saint-Mandé, Val-de-Marne. It is an AI-powered real-time mapping of air and noise pollution to guide sustainable urban planning. You have the map with all the demonstrators, and on the website greentechinnovation.fr, you have the description of these 12 territorial demonstrators. Third pillar, we need to scale all the AI use cases through collaboration. Today, over 75% of French region and 60% of metropolitan areas have already launched AI projects in energy management, mobility, and green monitoring. To foster replication and knowledge sharing, we co-created a territorial AI library for all these use cases. It is a national repository of real-world AI use case to help local governments to identify transferable solutions and to learn from each other's successes. Fourth pillar, we need a strong public and private partnership. We have to implement a better link between, on one side, all the public stakeholders, public purchasers, and on the other side, SMEs and startups. So we implement a public policy with an animation of the French green tech ecosystem, 3,000 startups and SMEs. And we gave them a label, a green tech innovation label, to foster for better links, especially between public purchasers and CEO of these startups. And some example, if you want to go and see on the website, Aquatech Innovation, it's AI and smart sensor for real-time water quality monitoring. And finally, the fifth, the last one of these crucial pillars, frugal AI. Frugal AI is at the core of our approach. We ensure that every AI solution deployed with our support delivers green benefits that outweigh its digital footprint. This principle guides all of our projects, from data collection to deployment. So these are the five pillars of our experience.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Very interesting. And I think these 5 pillars are also quite in line with the enabling condition we identify in the paper that we prepare as a background of this roundtable. So thank you so much. Maybe in the next round, you can elaborate a little bit more on some of the concepts, like this frugal urban AI principle that I think is very interesting. Now let's move to the other research center that we have in the panel. So I'm happy to give the floor to Martin Memel, who is from the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. Martin, we know that the Smart City Living Lab has applied AI in climate data analysis, crisis management, and age-sensitive spatial planning. Can you tell us a little bit more what were the enabling factors for the successful implementation and the scale up of AI based on your experience?
Thanks a lot for the opportunity to contribute in this event. Yeah, we'll report a little bit from the perspective of a researcher. We're working a lot together with German cities, so that's also a German perspective, I have to say. And yeah, we're a public-private partnership, and we're doing application-oriented research. And I don't have the silver bullet with me, so I can rather report on the problems, I have to say. What we would need is some technical and institutional interoperability. And from a technical point of view, I think we already mentioned a lot today that data is a central issue. In an ideal world, you would have an urban data space with open APIs that are well documented and with standardized data coming out from that, so that we can simply apply the algorithms. But the reality is that we have these individual IT platforms on a community level that hinder any progress a lot, at least in Germany. And yeah, of course, it would be perfect if we were able to introduce such data platforms. I think it's not a technical issue. There are also some very promising approaches, like in the program that this morning Gudrun Schwarz already reported. Communities gather together and develop open source platforms together that are on a professional level. But the question is how communities can be fostered to make use of these platforms, because it's just not simply switching to a new architecture. It's a very complex process. And yeah, then of course we would also need some modular architecture. So we shouldn't develop yet another monolithic approach, but we need components that are easily exchangeable. So I think interoperability and adaptability beats technology at this point. So communities should be able to exchange single parts. We don't know how the future will develop on a technical level. And not to neglect, we also need the ability to build software on a product level. That seems totally obvious, but these competencies are not present everywhere. They are not present in city administrations. They are also not present in the Standard Research Institute. We don't have resources and we don't have the money to pay people to develop products. And we have to consider that, and maybe we also have to adjust funding programs a little bit to allow maybe the best programs to the best applicants after a research program to get together to think about how we can really make a steady product out of what we did in these single projects. Yeah, and then from an institutional perspective, it would of course be great if cities had governance structures and processes for dealing with data. It's very complicated. It requires a lot of competences. I think they are usually not present. So I think they should also be part of the mandatory vocational program as well for all the stakeholders that make decisions in city administrations. So on the administrative level, but also on the level of urban planners, I think some knowledge about the potentials and the challenges of applying AI are absolutely necessary. You don't have to become an IT specialist, but you have to be aware of the potentials, and you have to be able to do something like a colleague often says, algorithmic thinking. I think this is super important because you cannot put these responsibilities on research institutes or on whatever kind of offices outside. And what we also already heard is capacity building is super important, I think. So yeah, I don't have any rules yet how to apply this on in Germany and as a standard process. Maybe we also need some administrative reform because it's not a matter of technology, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Martin, for these very clear points. Last but not least, we have also a representative from the private sector. So I'm happy to give the floor to Federico Fernandez from Urbanly. Urbanly developed a city compass that uses AI and agent-based simulation to forecast how development choices affect land use and real estate markets. So from your perspective, what skills and capacity do city teams need in data analysis, scenario design, or interpreting AI model to use this tool effectively and to make better planning decisions? You have the floor, Federico.
Thank you. Thanks, Stefano. And yeah, it was super interesting to hear Martin talking about going from the research to the product, because that's basically the challenge that we had 15 years ago. I was doing a PhD at UC Berkeley, and we were working on land use simulation models using agent-based technology with Paul Waddell, the head of planning of the university. And our model was open source, was available for any city to download and use. And that was a very good signal of, how big is the gap between those research projects and what can be implemented in reality in municipalities. Because the software was available, but not many cities were able to, finally deploy that because it required data and training. And in particular, I will talk in this answer about our training, but I think the data issue is also part of the training question. So the kind of simulations we do are not what we call scenario planning. It's not something where a city official will click and create a possible future. But what we do is to create these synthetic populations in a way that we can then change policy conditions, and these agents will react to changing conditions, and some emergent behavior will happen. And of course, we created the geospatial platforms. You can see here in the video, City Compass, and you can do a lot of things, clicking in different parts of the application. But that's not enough because using an already configured application is not enough for the complexities of planning. We all know how difficult it is to make evidence-based decision. So trying to I mean, behind this, there is this complex simulation model that will require a lot of data, and also introducing the real world behavior that we want to mimic. On that side, I think AI can help us in some way, because before, every time you want to change the behavior of these kind of models, let's say, for example, we are working with the household location choice model, so we want to represent how households will relocate in a city. So of course they will have different motivations, different, there will be different demand in the areas. And before the existence of AI, basically the city will have to come to us and say, I need code to represent this behavior. So we will, code the behavior. We are now seeing the Python console that is inside our application, where you can, write some code and modify the behavior of these models. But my point is that now with AI and, for example, Claude Code, you can just prompt the code that you want to write, and it will write the code for you. So without being a software engineer, you can start, making very deep changes in this kind of model. So, that's good. Another thing that I think it's super important is how LLMs can interpret text and generate structured data. Because cities, of course, have a lot of data, but many times the data that we need for these models, for example, zoning requirements that are super important for these models, because they are the ones that, basically defines what is the capacity available, and usually those are laws. So those are text that you need to interpret and convert that into something that we can introduce into the model. So we have been doing some experiments with LLMs, basically taking those texts, so taking the law and generating code that computes capacity, and that of course accelerates the process, and that is something that can be used also for, I don't know if it is exactly training, but a tool for city officials to improve their data. I mean, in the end, and completing my intervention, we are trying basically to move from a model that we started many years ago, because the story of this software is that with research at UC Berkeley, then we saw a lot of interest from cities. So we created one startup, another startup, and now a third startup. And our model of implementing this was going to a city, creating a consulting project, working a lot on data, perhaps 3, 4, 5 months, structuring the data. Many times the data was there, but not in the structure that we needed. And then we ran the simulation models, and that was a project. And we, forgot about that project, and we went to the next city to do the same. And that, I think, is not a very good outcome, because what we need is basically to have a way to first integrate the simulation into, the data platforms of the different municipalities, and more importantly, find a way for the city staff to maintain the platform, because it will be one-off if not. And as we were saying in many of the conversations, conditions are changing all the time. So perhaps you run one simulation model now with your current hypothesis and your current scenarios, but next year hypotheses will be different. So this should be, I think, an ongoing process for every city. So yeah, I mean, as a conclusion, what I will say is that training is key, because that process of handing over the systems to the city will be not successful. And I think that's super important.
Thank you so much, Federico, for this very also dynamic and practical presentation. I was really impressed by the video. So this concludes the first round. I didn't do very well in time management in the first round. So now I will ask everybody to respond in 2 minutes to the second round, so we can have a little bit of time also for the discussion with the other participants. Let me go back first to Marie from Nantes. So Nantes Metropole has created an AI charter, the AI Compass, and held the Nantes debate on AI to guide responsible AI use. How have these frameworks and the public debate shaped the city decision on deploying AI while maintaining also transparency and citizen trust? So if you, in a couple of minutes, Marie, you can tell us just some key messages on that, it would be great. Thank you.
So there are two Your question one is what we do internally. Internally, it's our AI compass, which you can see here, or you can see the main structure. It's 7 criterion, but inside there are 84 questions that make sure that we're really consistent and compliant with all our commitments in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of frugal AI, in terms of delivering public services according to certain rules. So this is the first part. There's a very strong guideline that we're building and that we're also hoping to share with colleagues from Europe and beyond so that they can stay relevant and robust. And you also mentioned another initiative which we led during 9 months called Nantes Débat de l'IA. So Nantes is debating AI, where we listen to public debates around AI. And we had a very thorough analysis of all the verbatims, and it emerged from this deep listening exercise that actually citizens care about, roughly the same thing. So it was not scripted before, but we saw that we are consistent. They deeply care about the environmental footprint of AI. They care about the agencies. That means that they are very concerned that AI remains a tool that, there's a human in control, that there is a kill switch if needed. They care and they ask for continuous education on AI, so we know where we can put our public money if we want to be serving them well. So this sort of twofold approach within 2 minutes. This is somehow how we try to be very, very cautious with AI, not get too much heated about the potential, and really follow a number of guidelines that apply to our organization.
Super, thank you very much, Maria, also for staying the 2 minutes. I know it's very challenging. Now we go to Jürgen from the city of Ghent. And Jürgen, we know that digital inclusion and reliable high-quality data are an essential foundation for equitable AI. So can you tell us how does Ghent ensure that vulnerable groups are not left behind as data-driven and AI-enabled services expand?
Thank you, great question. But first of all, inclusivity and I think also high quality data is not only on AI. You have to do it in every digital public service. You have to take into account these things. So for us in the city of Ghent, people-centered digital transformation and being consciously data-driven are our core principles, and also in Eurocities network. First of all, our people-centered digital transformation. Our core mindset is to start from human-centered design. In the first question, I go to privacy by design. Here you see also the human-centered design. What we do is to scope out early what the target group is, and especially when it comes to vulnerable groups. Target groups, we try to involve them early into the design phase, but also take them along the process up through usability and testing, and providing the proper communication on how the application work and can be used to benefit them. So this goes beyond just testing for bias on the model or the data side. This is about involving your target group and in the co-design, to avoid building assumptions into your system in both input, processing, and output. We called it e-inclusion by design. It is also together with other Flemish cities, we created an e-inclusion by design toolbox. You can also use it. And we are nominated for the Smart City Award in the Smart City Expo next week in Barcelona. So please come to there. And then secondly, consciously and inclusive data-driven is important for us, especially relevant for smaller and mid-sized cities. And it comes from the belief that you should be data-driven, but not on all topics and on all sides at once. Walk before you run, and at least choose in what field you want to run. And be strategic about that. That does not mean that you can be sloppy on data on the one hand and meticulous on the other hand. But for Ghent, we really choose to focus mainly on data of our core social services. And I want to give one example. In Ghent, we are piloting Carity. Carity is an innovative system that proactively applies social tariffs in community restaurants without citizens having to ask for them. The idea is simple but powerful. Instead of expecting people in vulnerable situations to request financial support, Carity automatically identifies eligibility. It's based on secure and ethical data exchange between social services and the city's digital systems. So it applies the reduced price directly at the point of payment. So this approach reduces stigma for that people. It also ensures inclusion. It also simplifies administration, both for the citizens and for the social restaurants. And also build trust, because that's also important, trust of people in the city. So Carity is a part of, again, broader strategy on digital inclusion and responsible data use.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. Now let's go back to the city of Turin, to Elena. Elena, can you also tell us in a couple of minutes, please, as AI application expand in urban mobility, planning, and public services, how is the city of Turin ensuring that the local regulation and the governance framework balance innovation with ethical use, transparency, and citizens' rights, also considering the EU AI Act? Elena, you have the floor.
Yes, thanks. So due to the high number of experimental activities with emerging technologies since 2023, we created the so-called Board of Ethics Applied to Emerging Technologies within the framework of Turin House of Emerging Technology. The board is a consultative multidisciplinary group which is assisting the city in conducting experimentations, but also innovative AI-powered digital projects to respect fairness, transparency, data protection, ethics by design, let's say. The board is formed not only by relevant municipal managers, including the DPO and so on, but from experts selected through a call for experts. So independent experts, including legal, societal, cultural, so even vertical knowledge. The board works through case-based thematic groups, starting from real projects, so that we follow this experimental approach. And for instance, till now we had two boards. One, it was about extended reality and metaverse application, and the other one was about generative AI applied to public service. The idea is that we work on concrete use cases and we define guidelines to help the city to move forward. So for instance, now the board is working on three tangible tools that will anticipate the EU AI Act and will help the city to work on these activities. The AI manifesto of the city of Torino, defining shared principles, guidelines for the municipal staff, and finally a checklist for supplier, introducing ethic by design to work with the city. This process, of course, is strongly linked to the city-wide digital strategy, and we work a lot on internal capacity building and also community capacity building. National and international cooperation is key in this. That's why we are working within Eurocities, as mentioned before by the city of Ghent, also to compare the governance models in these areas. This is our model, but we are happy to exchange and find other ways to cope with the idea to have ethics by design in any of the current and future AI or other emerging technologies projects impacting on society.
Thank you very much, Elena, also for staying in the 2 minutes. And now we go back to David from the Korean Research Institute. Through its AI City Task Force and international partnership, the Institute is shaping frameworks for responsible AI in urban planning. So can you tell us, David, how is the national government using this research to help local government overcome, in particular, capacity gaps on AI?
Yeah, okay, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, to ensure effective research and development, we have selected 3 pilot cities, Cheonan, Busan, and Daegu. And these research and development is being conducted by applying the technologies which are currently under development to each local city's urban planning process. Once completed, all findings will be made available to central government agencies, local government, private company, and public general for free via this platform we are considering now. However, the capacity to accommodate this will vary depending on the circumstances of each cities. For example, large cities with substantial human capital and budget will be different from smaller cities with less. To address this gap and make AI for all, the public institution like Korea Research Institute for Human Settlements will do like a capacity building program or support program such like that. I think there's another thing. Another thing to make it easy to use is making the AI-based technology user-friendly. For example, ChatGPT, we can use it very easily. Even the people who doesn't have any kind of background or knowledge about AI can use it because we can put our question in our language and we can get the answer from the machine promptly. So I think if we create AI-based technology user-friendly, the spreading it to local government and support program, it will be also easier. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Now let's go back to Thomas. I think you mentioned in one of your fifth point was about this concept of frugal AI. That is basically a reference system to reduce the environmental footprint in AI system. And it's a question that was raised also this morning about the environmental impact of AI. So how can municipality integrate this approach when deploying AI? And also what support the national government can provide them?
AI is transforming our cities.
The mic, sorry.
Sorry. AI is transforming our cities. It can improve energy consumption, mobility. It can strengthen resilience in face of climate risk, but it has a hidden cost. Carbon emission, energy, and all the resources, water, land, metals required to train, to run, and to maintain these systems. That's why the French Ministry of Ecological Transition created the National Frugal AI Framework developed by Ecolab with AFNOR. It was a worldwide premiere. We were the first country to do this. So Frugal AI is an approach that seeks to maximize the green value of AI systems while minimize their ecological footprint. It is done throughout their life cycle, from design and data collection to deployment and end of life. We believe that adopting this frugal AI concept will allow for more useful and sustainable adoption of AI. To support organization in employing this principle, Ecolab published the Frugal AI Engagement Kit. You have the QR code here. So it's a practical guide of 15 commitments. It provides guidelines to limit the green impacts of infrastructure, of models and data, and guidelines to adopt governance and evaluation good practices. So many municipalities are already demonstrating how this approach works in practice. For instance, Noisy-le-Grand, Recital, the project Recital, that applies Frugal AI to optimize building energy consumptions. The model uses local data, run on site, and reduce to a minimum the number of sensors that they deploy. They have already their carbon footprint reduced by a factor of 10, and they are saving 2.2 million each year in the energy consumption thanks to this frugal AI. We also launched a worldwide coalition, Sustainable AI Coalition.org. So 200 members, states, startups, big companies, worldwide organizations, researchers have joined this coalition to accelerate on this frugal AI.
Thank you very much, Thomas. It's a very interesting concept, really. We still have 2 speakers, so again, 2 minutes each, and then we can have 5-10 minutes of discussion. Let's go back to Martin from the German Research Center. So with your program, Smart City Living Labs, you are trying to, you're developing approaches and tools to make complex urban futures easier understandable. So how are you integrated this human-centered approach to build trust and to accelerate the adoption of AI at municipal level?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that digitization and AI does not necessarily make cities easier understandable, but you can make the complexity more negotiable, which is, I think, super important for any process, especially when they are as complex as urban planning processes. So in the first step, we are simply trying to identify the what is situation. What are the decisive dimensions for a planning process? What are my financial restrictions? What are my goals in planning? Is there infrastructure in the ground? Is there monument protection, and so on and so on? And we think that transparency in these points is a key issue. That's not necessarily related to AI, but I think it's super important also if you don't involve technology at all. So it's also a problem with a simply human process. And then we can apply AI as a second step to find out about the impact of specific plans. What's the impact regarding the goals that I envisioned, but also what's the potential impact on something that I probably didn't have in mind. And it's super complicated. We know that. We are currently, by the way, doing a project with the city of Mannheim, trying to find out about potential measures against climate change. How can we have a more fact-based and more democratic discourse about different planning means? Because this, I think, is a key for our society in the future. And it would be very nice if we were successful in finding out about the relevance and how realistic planning options would be, and to have a better discussion in public.
Thank you very much, Martin. Federico, you have the last word of the panel. So again, if in a couple of minutes you can tell us how Urbanly is trying to manage this pressure and trade-off between sustainability and economic growth and economic development in your AI model, that would be very useful. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a super interesting question because it allows us to, to focus in a particular aspect of the simulation model. And I was listening to Thomas on the frugal AI, and I was thinking on this idea of the frugal model. So trying to make the model as minimalistic as possible to be able to make it with the less data that you can. And yeah, but that connecting in particular with the environment, and you can see there on the screen one example of creating a park inside of 1 hour simulations and seeing some results. I have to say that we started these models in the US, in the United States of America, in the late 2000s, working a lot in the Midwest. So all the environmental targets were not super important for them. But then as we were at UC Berkeley, we had the chance to do for them a 30-year plan. And at that point, we started to learn more and more about all the climate targets that California has. So it was like we started to feel that something was missing from the models because we were looking a lot into the economy and housing and all that, but not the environment. So 3 startups after that, and now at Urbanly, I have to say that the environment is there by design. So we, were conscious that it is super important to take that into account, and it is implemented as, for example, right now when our real estate developer agents are evaluating a particular project, they, for example, can not only use money to pay for the project, but also carbon credits, or it is also possible to evaluate the difference between redevelopment and development and its impact. Something else that we push a lot is that usually there is an emissions perspective from the traffic simulation teams, but we also want to emphasize that many times land use is more important than traffic, because people are, doing those trips because they have something to do, and that's about land use and not the traffic simulation. When you get to the traffic simulation and the congestion, it's already late, I think, from my point of view. And last comment, we also have been interacting a lot with our colleagues from CEA, City Energy Analysts. That I think is a wonderful model. If any city wants to do something with energy and solar potential and all that, it is from the ETH in Switzerland. And we have been implementing a lot of the models that we do inside our economic simulation. So trying to connect land use and housing with the environment.
Thank you, Federico. Really inspiring. Thanks so much. So we have about 5 minutes for a question and answer to our panelists or to our keynote speaker. So I don't know who wants to start. We can start with Czechia. So.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for very inspiring presentation. And my question would go especially to the cities of Nantes and Ghent. Both of the presentations were circulating around responsible and transparent use of AI. And I'd like to know your opinion on how central governments can help cities operationalize AI ethics in daily governance, not only through regulation, but let's say through training or shared learning ecosystem. And well, in your perspective as representative of a city, what can you envisage to be the appropriate aid or help from the national level in this respect of having responsible and transparent use of AI? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Czechia. We'll collect a few questions before going back to our panelists. I have the person there. I cannot read the sign, sorry. If you can introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you very much. Monica Haida from LSE. I'm as well working at City Network and as well chairing a standardization committee in Germany for sustainable cities and communities. And my question goes a bit in this direction, actually. So we heard about the need for scaling, replication, about interoperability, about learning from each other. And here and there, the topic or the word standard has been dropped. It was, I think, introduced by Korea about data standards. Then we heard, I think, about AFNOR supporting the initiative in France and so on and so forth. However, I feel that the topic is not really commonly approached about how this knowledge that is being created in cities and communities can be scaled and what role standards can play. So looking into activities on European level, for example, about trusted data spaces or trusted data transactions, which is in a new European Committee on Standardization, we see that there are few to none city representatives. So standardization is still an industry-driven approach, and I wonder why that is. And if we cannot entice the cities that are here to engage a bit more into standardization so that they can really take their learnings into this space and really make any solutions that are being provided to them adhere to standards that they created within these communities.
Thank you very much. Then I will go in order, please, if you can also.
Good afternoon, thank you. And thank you to the speakers for a fascinating session. My name is Rigel Robinson. I'm with the Bay Area Council. We're the business association for the major employers in the San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley. It was very nice to see my home geography in Urban Lee's video presentation. I think a recurring theme today has been the hidden costs of AI and therefore the importance of pursuing AI solutions for municipal uses, not just for the sake of using AI, but when they are a unique solution to a real public problem. And so I'd be very interested in hearing from our public sector speakers, the municipalities, to your perspective, if the most successful public-private partnerships we've been talking about, the most successful AI innovations at the municipal level, have been the product of a city putting out a call, a request for proposal saying, here is a problem that we want a technology solution for, or if it was tech innovators approaching the city with a perceived solution to a perceived problem, or of course, perhaps a bit of both. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great question. I take the last two. Kit, please.
You know, just two quick related questions. I wondered how well regulatory and governance frameworks are keeping pace with the rapid progress in the field of AI. The sheer speed of its development seems to be outstripping the pace at which new regulations can be developed and implemented. And if this is the case, what can or is being done to create adaptable, flexible regulatory frameworks that can evolve alongside technological development? So how do you strike the right balance between innovation and responsible development?
Thank you, Kit. And finally, the person close to you, I don't see also the...
Georg from Empirica. Hello, I represent an EU project. I would strike in the note you just mentioned. We are this project of 8 cities which came together and says we have a problem. We want to do something about circular economy and we want AI to help us with this. It's not cutting edge, but has been explained a lot here. It's more mundane uses of AI, collecting information and so on. But yeah, I would also highlight innovation procurement, joint procurement as a solution to the challenge of having a product quality solutions available on the market and also being accessible to many cities and not only to those who can do it from the top. You know, not everybody is Singapore, not everybody is Amsterdam. There are many small cities around.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's go back to our panel. And one question was very specific for Nantes, and the other one, I think, who feels like answering, please take the floor. Maybe we can start with Nantes.
Right. The question about the transparent use of AI, I'm not sure if there's a silver bullet, but if I had like a wish list at national level, or even at, in the case of Nantes, so European level, where people could help would be, well, transparency is about being able to explain, to audit and explain and you know, get into the black box. So if everything that can foster sovereign solutions in terms of building small-scale LLMs, in terms of data storage, you know, the whole range, the whole life cycle, that helps actually, because the more we're able to knock at the door and say, listen, we have this fantastic grid, but you know, every once in a while when we are asking people, they say, well, no, sorry, it's business secret. We cannot answer. So we're sort of in a, you know, in a conundrum, because you know, we have the best of will to be very transparent and report to our citizens, but either we abide by our own laws and we don't vet the projects that we wanted initially to go with, and that's what happened in Nantes most of the time, or we sort of tweak because there's an immediate need and there is a cost of not doing something. So that's not ideal. So that would be for me the, you know, the first level of help. Do you want me to reply to other things, or we? Okay. Just I think about the I think it was the Bay Area question. AI coming, well, the projects, innovation projects coming from a public request for, or the other way around, you know, innovators coming to us. I think we are fortunate to be, well, nothing to compare with Bay Area, of course, but it is a very sound ecosystem where we meet each other, you know, like once a month or so, and we see each other and we compare notes. And so there's, we pull both triggers, I think, and it's not that I don't want to reply, but there's no specific case where we say, okay, we're going to rule everything through public projects and we launch bids and call for offers and so on, because that wouldn't work. We cannot possibly know what people are thinking in terms of innovation in our territory without exchanging. So yeah, it's a bit of joint, you know, learning together.
Thank you very much, Marie. Who else wants to respond? Jens?
Yeah, maybe as a city, what you ask about how can national government help? they can help it with money. It's easy. No, it's not a joke, because if you want to innovate, you need also innovation investment funds. And I always said we have to decrease our OPEX. And in 5 years, it has to be 8% less. You can't do that without investing in innovation. So you need an innovation fund. And we have a small innovation fund in Ghent, but that's not enough. You need to collaborate with other cities to have larger funds and to collaborate with the national level. Another thing I think national level can help is also in tendering processes, because everyone it's difficult in public sector to have a quick tendering process with a private company. In Belgium it is, I don't know in other countries, but I think it's the same. We want to work with startups. We want to work quick, and we want to create POCs, and then we have to handle. And if we stay the old public sector, then we will not go. We not can challenge the future. So I think our processes have to make innovation. Our processes of tendering, and maybe the national government also can help in that. About the question of regulation versus innovation, yes, that's the paradox. The paradox of the public sector, I think, these days. But I think regulation don't have to be a barrier. You can comply, or you can explain why you do not comply, and you have to be transparent about that. So I think you can innovate with also be in line with regulation. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. Any other panelists who would like to respond to the questions? No, Federico.
Yeah, very small comment on transparency and black boxes, because we have been working on I mean, these models for making decisions for 15 years now, and it was not AI at that point, but you know, it were algorithms that were used for taking decisions. And I think something that is super important is to choose very carefully what are the tools you use for supporting decisions. Because, for example, neural networks, that is basically what is behind the technology of AI. Yes, it's more or less a black box. So it's very difficult to understand from input what are the outputs. So, for example, for many of our algorithms, we avoid using them because we lost traceability and transparency. And it has been a very important value for the cities we have been working with in the last years. That transparency both on the source code, but also in which kind of models we are using, and if it is easy or not to understand the result of a particular model.
Thank you very much, Federico. So we are running a little bit late. So before the coffee break, I will give the floor to my colleague, Lucia Cusmano, who is the head of the SMEs and Entrepreneurship Division at the OECD. So if you can tell us what are your thoughts, impressions based on the session, in particular with a view on SMEs, that is the focus of your work on AI and digitalization. Lucia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Stefan, and thanks to all the panelists. I have to say that a very first thought was before coming into the room, well, we're talking about AI deployment that is at early stages. But listening to the conversation, I have to say that these are early stages that are accelerating so fast, not only in terms of technological opportunities, but it looks also in terms of the response or the anticipation that is taking place at the urban level by administration, coalition. We heard a lot about also places for experimentation, accelerators, incubators. So yes, it's at the early stages, probably we have not yet got a full understanding of all the potentiality, but it's an early stage that is moving extremely rapidly. A few elements that I could get from this very rich discussion. It's a transition that is going extremely fast, that demands engagement by many players, many stakeholders at all levels. There was the question related, for example, to what the government, the national government can do for cities, and vice versa. I think also how experimentation that is taking place at the urban level can provide learning lessons, can be a place for experimentation that is looked at very carefully also at the national level for scaling up these initiatives, possibly for dissemination also in urban areas, urban context that may not be as advanced and as developed. So large numbers of stakeholders, but also I got from the conversation the absolute need for very solid governance frameworks. It's in terms of strategies, is in terms of responsible use and application of AI. So possibly even more than it was in the past with other digital technologies and digital transition, the governance framework, the regulatory framework is of the essence. Room for experimentation, testing, resources for investing. These I took where some other very important elements being discussed. The city environments that can provide a test bed, so real pilots that are tested in an urban area, including also communities of citizens, small businesses, startups, where, however, it's important to look at this test bed also for developing metrics, for monitoring performance, assessing different types of impacts, capacity to respond to societal needs, but also there was, I think, important mention to the hidden cost. So can these experiments in urban areas also help develop this type of monitoring framework that take all these elements into account? The question of giving visibility, proving that there is a viability, there is profitability, which is key to attract investment and scale application. So all of these inevitably, in my mind, I was trying also to relate to the agenda that we are developing when it comes to AI adoption by small businesses, but also the role that innovative startups, innovative SMEs can play in advancing this agenda. And one of the reasons where I think there is a clear connection with the discussion today is that startups, innovative SMEs, they can provide agility, the tailored solutions to urban challenges that are often the focus of this type of initiatives. I noted, for example, also in the, I think it was Nantes, our colleague from Nantes mentioning the question of sovereignty, which I read also in terms of solutions that respond to needs in a very specific context, and where therefore there can be this flexibility, this agility that innovative players, for example, like innovative startups can provide. And here, very briefly, I would like to highlight some of the priorities that we see in our work and that I think reflect a lot the discussion that was held today. First of all, the question of the access to some key strategic resources that were mentioned by several of the panelists. This is skills, this is talent, this is expertise, advisory services. It's not just a question of the skills or the upskilling of the entrepreneur, of the startupper, but also of, for example, the public administration, the municipal administration that has to interact with these technology providers. Is also upskilling more broadly in the citizens, in the communities that then have access to the type of services that may develop through AI deployment. And here I think it's important, I think Urban Lai highlighted it, the question of trust. This is, for example, in our work on SMEs and entrepreneurs, an issue that we find is still holding back application adoption. Mistrust, fear of misinformation, fear of hallucination, fear of the unknown. But in any case, the trust element being extremely important, and this is related to awareness, but also to actual skills and knowledge of the matter. Other strategic resource that was mentioned, finance. The colleague from Gantt, you know, when you mention what do we need from the national level is money, is fund. Access to tailor funding is of the essence. Is not the usual credit lines, although of course, more generally access to finance can go also through the normal channel. But in the case of AI application deployment, we see the need for more targeted instruments, and where national program, national R&D program, I think it was mentioned in the case of Korea, can have a very important role also as a catalyst for private investors. Other strategic resource is data, of course, open data, digital infrastructure, and I think it was mentioned the importance of interoperability, if not modularity. This again is an issue that we find very often when talking about SMEs and entrepreneurs adopting or approaching AI. One of the risks that is assessed and that hold back adoption is the lack of interoperability. And of course, access to data is, in this case, on this matter, essential also for the experimentation. And at the city level, there are very valuable data sets that can allow for experimentation, but getting those together in an interoperable framework is of the essence. Another element, inclusive procurement and partnership models. I think that was mentioned as well. Very often access to public tender is a major barrier for smaller businesses and startups. It's absolutely needed in this case to make the procurement, the tender process more entrepreneur friendly, SME friendly, which means a simplification, unbundling large contracts, allowing short-term trial projects, but also moving from a technology-specific tenders more to outcome-based challenges. And I think there are a lot already of solutions being tested also in terms of hackathons, innovation challenges, etc., so that aim at engaging in a different way startups and SMEs to find solutions. And finally, the need for a systemic perspective, connected, collaborative innovation ecosystems, what we mentioned earlier about the governance framework, the role of the different layers of the public administration, including the national one, the engagement of the universities. I think it was very clear the triangle in the case of Singapore is the public, is the universities, is the private sector, but all of these needs some enabling conditions in terms of linkages of knowledge exchange. And we see already, at least at a small scale, this is happening, for example, with the case of incubators and accelerators at the city level that are engaging public-private partnership and that can represent very important small-scale experiment that could be scaled up. So we very much look forward also on the SME and entrepreneurship side to continue following this discussion as there are so many interesting linkages and opportunities, I think, also to think further about how to engage the private sector in AI deployment for urban. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucia, for this very rich conclusion. And we also look forward to keep the connection and strengthen the cooperation with the SME component. So now we can go to the coffee break. We'll be back in 15 minutes at 6:05. But before that, let's give a final round of applause to all the speakers, including to the one online.
Hello, hello, welcome back. Welcome back to the session. Finally, I'm the boss. After the whole day running around, I'm in charge. And what I like is this. So when your time's up, it's gonna be like that. Okay, so thank you for sticking to us. It's been real marathon all this morning. And part of this afternoon, that session was also very, very heavy in terms of information that we got. It's been very interesting. I thought I was promoted, but no.
Sorry.
Okay. So thank you for staying with us. So we have had a very full day of discussion on different areas in which cities are using AI. So we started this morning discussing how cities are actually using AI, different examples that we hear from Tampere, from Amsterdam, from Mannheim, from the national governments in Germany, for example, also from Italy, and some members of the private sector. And then we move on to discuss what are the untapped possibilities for the use of AI in cities. And then this last session was about the enablers. What is enabling cities to use AI? What is missing? So we talk a lot about data. We talk about financing. We talk about capacity, skills, all that kind of stuff. So, but now in this session, in this last session of Roundtable, what we are going to look at is how strategic foresight can help us navigate this uncertainty of the use of AI. Because it could be in fashion, but it's still very uncertain what is going to happen. So what we are going to do is just exploring not just what is likely to happen, but what could happen and what we want to happen. So this is the future, what we want to do. So while we talk about AI in this session, I invite you all to think about AI and smart cities, not just as a systems to manage, but also as a future to imagine. What is what we want to get? What is what could disturb us from arriving to that goal? And then what are the possibilities that we have to overcome those challenges, different futures that we could have. So this is the idea of this session, to think more about the future. We thought about the past and the present, but now let's think about the future, where we are going. And to set the scene for this discussion, to start, I'm very pleased to welcome Mr. Geoffroy Boulard, who is the mayor of the Paris 17 arrondissement, 17th district of Paris, and is the vice president of the Greater Paris Metropolis, where he leads the work on communication and digital innovation. And he has been at the forefront of Paris' efforts to use artificial intelligence responsibly in local governance, helping cities to explore how technology can serve people, improve services, and support sustainability. So he will share with us the experience of the Greater Paris Metropolis AI strategy, and share his perspective on AI and the future of urban development. Monsieur le Maire, thank you for being with us. Merci. You have the floor for the next 10 minutes. Yes.
This one?
Yeah.
Thank you, Oscar, for and for the organization for economic cooperation and development for the invitation, and for letting me introduce this roundtable. Artificial intelligence and the future of urban development. First of all, I would like to explain you what is the Greater Paris Metropolis. Is a dense urban area, including 130 municipalities and 7.2 million of inhabitants. It represents the leading employment hub in Europe. It contributes to 25% of the France GDP, and is a very dynamic environment for innovation. This includes different profiles of municipalities, from very small to very large, with different levels of economic development. The Greater Paris Metropolis works actively on digital transformation for and with the mayor, with the municipalities. We are working on solutions to improve public policies and service. Artificial intelligence is already at the heart of the transformation of our territories, citizen services, management of public buildings, transport, and more. It's changing our lifestyles and economies from a more territorial point of view. Since 2023, we noticed the demand for AI grow. So to support this demand and to make this AI transformation accessible, good for all population, we launched an AI strategy this year on last April. The name of his strategy is Deep Whaling, Sustainable, you can see it, and ethical AI solution to serve public policies on the area. This strategy is based on two ambitions. Our first ambition is to ensure that the benefits of artificial intelligence are accessible to all municipalities, not only the biggest. So we identify and select useful AI solution and startups cooperation in our criteria. We have launched a program to experiment with AI solution in territories. I will focus on that point later. And we want to create, thirdly, a data space project for municipalities. AI with data is mixed to help them to share data securely. Our second ambition is to develop a dynamic and international AI ecosystem around the metropolis. We build a strong strategic partnership with leading innovation networks and experts like Hub France IA or Open Data France. We actively fund the research project on AI applied to territories and work to create a university chair in Paris. We work closely also with elected representatives, public servants, government, and citizens. And we are proud to participate in a major events like next week in Barcelona, the Smart City World Congress Expo, and Vivatech in Paris in June. To illustrate this strategy, I would like to highlight one of our flagship programs called Appropriation Métropolitaine. This program is a training and experimentation program to test a solution with artificial intelligence for public policies. It is a free program for our municipality, for all municipalities. It focuses on different topics that we can call tracks: energy, mobility, economy, and more. It is divided in three parts. First, training. We begin by supporting elected officials and public servants, helping them to understand the opportunities and challenges as artificial intelligence in public policy. Second, experimentation with a local case, not business case, but a local case, and we test a solution during 1 year. Thirdly, scaling up. We buy solution that we are first test using other funding program in the greater Paris metropolis. 5 tracks are already part of this program on very various topics. Energy management. Energy management for public buildings. 60 municipalities are involved in this program. Optimization of the use of delivery zone. 11 municipalities involved. Optimization of administrative process. So in French, we are very strong to bureaucracy. So 26 municipalities involved in this project. We have in this program another track is about the center of cities to revitalization, to help business to develop mobility, and we have a program for city centers, and 13 municipalities recently applied to this. And the fifth is about construction material for municipalities and reuse of this with a platform, and we are six municipalities recently applied. We want to launch new tracks since for few months. Urban planning and development. We think with intelligence, artificial intelligence, sorry, it could be very interesting in this matter. Noise and sound pollution. It's an important strategy to develop to reduce this in urban dense urban area, and management of water. 3 new tracks we would like to launch in the few weeks. So in conclusion, not to be too long, well, you can see our strategy in shaping cities with intelligence artificial. The Greater Paris Metropolis launched this strategy to prepare for the now and the future. Our main concern is to make sure local voice, citizen, elected official stay included and make good decisions. To explore these topics, I will now let the floor to my colleagues from Japan, the UK, Dutchland, Mexico, Slovak Republic, Australia, and I will thank you for having me.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Maire.
It was good in time.
It was very good. Thank you so much. I didn't use this, so it was okay. So thank you very much for this keynote speech to open the discussion today. So I would like to know if there's any question for Monsieur le Maire, because I do have one to start with, while the others kind of think about the question is, you have a lot of experience here when you've been doing in Paris, not only in the 17th district, but also in the greater Paris region. And there are many cities represented here. If any city would like to start all this journey on AI, what would be your advice to these cities based on the experience of Paris?
To begin?
Yeah.
I can advise cities to start the use of intelligence artificial in administration. I think it's very popular because we are a lot of cities involved in that project, because they involve also public servants. So it's very interesting because they work with artificial intelligence for themselves, for public population, but they appropriate the intelligence artificial for there and for public. So, and it's good for their work, their best work for population.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any question, please?
So let's talk about water is an initiative using film. I can hear myself using film to educate people about water. And I work with the Water Governance Initiative within OECD. And Paris is now very famous for being very aggressive about clean water and swimming in the Seine like this. When you start a new track about AI and the complexity of the discussion today, and the word accelerate that Luciana mentioned earlier, might you consider making a short film about how you develop your ideas for the track about water in Paris with AI? Short 4-minute film, and then I put on my platform and I can share with the world. We talk later, okay? Have your girl call my girl, okay? Je fais mes excuses, je suis informant. Merci.
Yeah, I also have a question about your AI use case for public administration. 26 municipalities, you said. What does it lead to reduction of public servants, or was there a purpose to reduce the amount of public servants, or?
Sorry, the main goal is to attempt performance of the organization and to deliver best service, public service, local public service. The goal is not to reduce public servants in the administration. It could be a consequence after, not the main goal.
Yeah, so your business case was to increase your quality of your public service. Okay.
Sorry, and to keep to say human supporting for population, not only artificial intelligence will solve all problems and reduce the relation between citizens and administration and elected people. It's very important. We explain that that it's ethical because it's not replace public servant and the human relation with population.
Yes, thank you. I think it's important, but the risk in that, I think, is that with AI, you're just doing more. Sometimes, okay, better, yeah, okay, better. But sometimes it gives more pressure because they have an AI system then, and then their leading civil servant, he is saying, yes, we now have an AI system. You can do now 100 and dossier more. So you just have to
reflection but I think what I see in with public servants, with municipalities, with mayor, that they would like to know, understand what AI will provide for them. So they would like to have benefit with it, not to replace their role. Okay.
Thank you very much. You see, the debate is beginning to take place, so this is good. I hope it will be like that during the Q&A after the panel discussion today. I think we'll move to that. Monsieur le Maire will stay with us for that. So in case you have some more questions for Monsieur le Maire, is fine. Huh?
Online.
Online.
I have a question. I don't know if you're able to listen to me. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Perfect. This is Cristina from Policy Lab from Mexico. And my question is, Mr. Villar, how do you coordinate and collaborate with the national government and aligned to international frameworks? How is the strategy aligned to international frameworks?
Thank you. It's our own metropolitan policy. No discussion with state. It's a strategy we share with 130 municipalities. Not a national fund, just it's our own strategy. We are happy to share you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll continue this Q&A after the panel discussion today. To start, so now it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists for this last session of the roundtable. So we have the pleasure of welcoming here Suichiro Nakamura, Director of Digital Planning and Coordination at the Digital Strategy Division at the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. Mr. Nakamura, welcome to OECD. We also have Marlene Damerau, a Smart City Urban Lead for the city of Gelsenkirchen. I hope I pronounced it correctly, from Germany. So thank you so much, Marlene. I know it was almost close not to come, but thank you for making it. We also have Jura Hostak, Director General of Innovation and Strategic Development at the Ministry of Investment, Regional Development and Informatization in the Slovak Republic. Thank you for coming. We also have, as you saw already, Cristina Martinez Pinto from the PIT Lab Policy Lab in Mexico, who is joining us online. We also have George Harrington, Urban Futures Lead and Adobe Foresight. Thank you, George, for joining. And we have, last but not least, Corey Gray. He's the president of the Smart Cities Council, who's also joining us for the second time as panelist in the roundtable. Thank you, Corey, for being with us. So let's start this discussion. So please take your headphones. I understand our first panelist will intervene in Japanese. So Mr. Nakamura, so thank you for being with us. We know that Tokyo has launched an AI strategy already and is embedding AI across metropolitan services. Looking ahead for the next 10, 20 years, how do you anticipate AI will reshape the way Tokyo plans and manages its growth from mobility to housing, that I know is a problem in Japan, to climate resilience? And what long-term capabilities are you building to prepare for that future? You have the floor.
本日はお招きいただきましてありがとうございます。AI はですね、私たちの社会や生活に大きな変革をもたらす可能性を秘めた技術と考えておりまして、東京都では AI を東京都が目指す都市の実現を加速するための強力なツールとして明確に位置づけまして、東京都が AI と向き合う際の基本的な考え方や取り組みの方向性を示すというもので、東京都 AI 戦略というものを2025年、今年の7月に作成いたしました。AI を都政のあらゆる側面で徹底的に利活用しまして、都民サービスの質の向上と業務の生産性向上を図っていこうと考えております。AI の利活用という観点では、AI の技術革新は急速な勢いで進化していくことから、東京都では比較的短い時間軸の中で、その時々に応じた最適な AI 技術を選択し、業務や行政サービスに取り入れていくというふうに考えております。東京都 AI 戦略ではですね、AI 利活用がもたらす近未来の変革の姿というものを住民の暮らしと職員や行政組織の両面でですね、描いていこうというふうに考えております。一方で、未来への備えという観点からでは、先ほどのセッション3の最後の方にも出ましたが、人材の確保とか育成ということが欠かせないというふうに考えております。東京都 AI 戦略におきましては、AI を活用した新たな価値の創造や推進を図る人材の確保、育成に向けた取り組みを推進することを掲げております。大学や高校等での専門人材の育成、社会人のリスキリングの支援、行政職員の人材育成といったことに取り組んでいこうと考えております。ありがとうございます。
Thank you, Mr. Nakamura. I think the training of public officials is one of the topics that I think we cover in our note, and it's something that many other cities are working on. So thank you for that. We'll go back to you with perhaps some more in-depth question on that in the second round. Thank you. Now I move to Marlene from Gelsenkirchen. Sorry, it's very complicated. You will excuse me. So your city is building capacity through application center and smart city platforms. So looking ahead again, because it's a future-oriented session, in the next 10 or 20 years, how do you envision these early AI deployments shaping the city's long-term transformation? And what steps are you, well, or the city is taking now to ensure that today's systems can adapt to future technologies and citizens' needs?
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Microphone? It's on. It's on? Yeah? Can you hear me? Yes? Yes, yes. Okay. When we look ahead 10 or 20 years, we in Gelsenkirchen, we believe that AI will be normal public infrastructure like energy and water. And the question is not whether cities will use AI, but how they can do so safely and affordably and in line with their values. The problem, however, is that most cities cannot afford to build AI systems on their own. They depend on vendors, and that means they risk losing digital sovereignty. So our answer in Gelsenkirchen is collaboration. Cities, research, and the private sector should co-create solutions, share the costs, and maintain them as open source systems. We think this is how public administrations can stay in control while still innovating. In our city, we try to do this on 2 levels. First, we prepare our own data ecosystem, such as the data strategy, data governance, the open data platforms, all based on open source software, open standards, and universal data models to be AI ready and enable data sharing within the administration and with partners. Second, we are building, as you said, AI capacity through our project Urban KI, which is an open collaborative approach with other cities, with research and industry, to jointly develop altogether 9 AI prototypes for real-world use cases, from mobility and climate to urban safety and inclusion. By the end of the project, all software will be available to everyone, and the project is funded by the German federal government in its Model Project Smart Cities program. What we learn in this project is that responsible AI is not about technology first. It's about building collaborative capacity, trust, and shared responsibility. And based on these lessons, we are now preparing to found a research institute that brings together cities, research partners, and industry to further develop and maintain open AI prototypes. These will be standardized applications that any city can use, adapt, and trust because they're transparent and not dependent on a single provider. So our goal in Gelsenkirchen is simple: to make AI a tool for the public good, to share costs, and to help cities learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marlene. I think this issue of not being dependent on a single provider is one of the challenges that many cities have. And we listened a lot about that when we did the interviews for the background notes that we prepared for this session. And I think this is important. And the issue of building partnerships with other cities is a way to also to increase capacity. And also that we hear like a lot in Seoul. I think they are doing that, financing projects with the different districts is also a way of not only increasing capacity, but also financing. So it's very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Marlene. Now I move to the national government, to Juraj from the Slovak Republic. Juraj, I think also as well in the Slovak Republic, you are working on digital transformation and AI strategies. Looking ahead as well, how do you envision AI transforming urban development in the Slovak Republic over the next decade? What long-term capabilities or governance mechanisms will cities need to manage that transformation responsibly according to the experience of your country?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me. Apologies for the voice, I think I lost it somewhere in the morning session. So that's a difficult question, especially for the looking ahead part, because one of the key things, and I think we've heard it a couple of times in the previous panels regarding AI, is the speed and the sort of race that it has to it. And I, in particular, like the question regarding the alignment between the Paris AI strategy and the national strategy. I wish some of our municipalities would be as fast as Paris and be sooner than the national strategy, so we don't have to align, but that's not the case. In Slovakia, it's a specific situation because we have almost 3,000 municipalities for roughly 5.5 million inhabitants. So this is a very wild environment in which we operate. And despite our hopes and wishes, where we would like to see municipalities developing or working with us to develop their, not even the strategy, but perhaps the capabilities to understand how beneficial the strategy can be and how they can leverage AI. I think what we have to focus on is perhaps not the next decade, but the next couple of years, in the very, very near future, where we have to be as supportive as possible of this large number of municipalities, because they will need many of the enablers that we mentioned in the previous panel, especially the capacity and the capabilities provided by training, by complementing them. And I think AI comes very handy in this process because it can not only serve as an application or a solution, but it can very well complement the capacity that the municipalities currently have. On our side, what we have pledged to come with, to come to support with is the access to funding and practical guidance. This is something that I will honestly say that we're also not keeping up to speed that we had in mind during when we promised this pledge. But still, we're doing our best to provide this training and capacity building to our municipalities. We're now rolling out a program, which I hope we'll be able to interlink with the OECD as well, that's focused on equipping our municipalities with the necessary, at least basic skills to navigate through the ever-changing AI landscape. The funding access, that is something that we have been able to achieve. Our municipalities currently have over 70 million euros at their disposal to apply with AI solutions they can develop in their own environments. But the practical guidance part, that's something that is missing, and it's missing also on the national level. And I was about to ask also to the example of Paris, how long did it take to get all the regulation and the internal directives ready to deploy the AI solutions? Because even as a ministry and Ministry of Digitalization, this is a lengthy process. And we've been actually only just now, we have issued a final version of the internal directive on how to use AI for ourselves. We want to be leading as an example, but I cannot even imagine how a municipality of in a couple of tens of people will be able to get something like this done for themselves, let alone to devise the solutions that they aim to implement. So in this sense, I think the practical guidance on a national level and perhaps even wider on a regional or EU or perhaps even the OECD could come into play by developing such practical guidance that could be taken over by the national government and then transposed to the local regional governments. It will be unified and would be also in line with the concept of open source solutions, because of course, if we do not do this in time, our municipalities, if they mobilize quickly enough, they will be forced to reach for solutions that are not completely open source, that are off the shelf, that are ready in a box and are easy to implement and apply. If, however, we succeed, we are also on the national level developing a solution very similar to the Korean example, which I particularly liked. It's a national and centralized data management platform for smart city solutions, which will allow us to be in complete control of the standards, of the security, and also of the technical assistance that will come with it for the integration process. So we will be able to assist these small municipalities in not needing more understanding of the AI application than the specific use it is intended for, because the rest will be governed nationally. And of course, we also have an R&D initiative that will be running in parallel. That's 50 million euros, should be probably enough to develop applications. So really to enter this discovery phase. So not to focus on solutions that are readily available and have already been discovered. That is something that we hopefully will take for granted and for given to be integrated, but also to explore new possibilities, especially in the context of data that we have available. Data, of course, will be a major enabler. And at the moment, I don't think anybody in our government is equipped enough or has the knowledge to say exactly and exhaustively what kind of data we have currently at disposal. So this data discovery process is an ongoing effort. And I think it's going to take us some time to have the full picture, but still a necessary process, that one we have to go through. And I'm happy to hopefully perhaps at the next roundtable inform how this process was concluded and how this platform came to the go live stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Jurek, for sharing this, and also for the points on the access to finance and practical guidance, so to help municipalities an idea and not to focus on ready solutions, so they have to be more tailored to the needs of the municipalities. And also there's a question for Monsieur Le Maire for the Q&A already. How long it took Paris to get the regulation ready? So I leave you that for the Q&A to think about in the meantime. So I move to now all the way from Slovak Republic to Mexico City with Cristina Martinez Pinto from the PIT Policy Lab Mexico. Cristina, thank you for joining us online. Well, you have been working on AI roadmaps and ethical guidelines and training for municipal governments in Mexico. Looking ahead, what new skills and governance models will cities need over the next decade to move from small pilots to citywide, future-ready AI system that can adapt as technologies evolve? What are your thoughts about that?
Good morning from over here. Thank you for this question. And congratulations, of course, to the organizing committee for today's comprehensive agenda. It's been a long day for you already. You somewhat live in the future, so I hope it's brighter than on this side of the world. Thank you for the invitation, Oscar, and to the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions, and Cities team for this opportunity. I made this visual using Napkin AI, and I will be walking the audience through it, but I hope these are some useful insights you can use in your work and your institutions. From the work that we're doing in Policy Lab in Mexico and the Latin American region, what I've learned is that when speaking about AI initiatives, the biggest challenge is not necessarily technological capacity, but instead governance readiness. Cities often have a series of pilot projects that work in isolation, and lack their institutional structures, data infrastructure, and the leadership skills to scale them responsible. So looking ahead, I believe cities can benefit from looking at three main shifts. The first idea is that we need to shift from a digital management perspective to an anticipatory governance approach. And our advice here is for local teams to move beyond the logic of operating digital systems towards facing and governing uncertainty and complexity. Understanding how AI systems are evolving, how to manage data effectively, and how to build adaptive norms and regulation. To us at PIT, this means embedding policy foresight and ethical impact assessment within city planning, not as adds-on after deployment. And this reminded me of an initiative we had with the British Embassy in Mexico focused on municipal digital transformation. We had expert consultation and a series of knowledge exchange sessions to learn about trends analysis, scenario building, and best practices about the UK's experience to equip municipalities in Mexico, 30 specifically, with tools and leadership skills to drive these transformative processes. And within this project, we published a guide and a digital transformation checklist that's available on our website if anyone is interested in this topic specifically. The second shift is moving from a technical skills focus to interdisciplinary capacity. Here, we believe we need more public interest technology generalists, people who understand algorithms, but also law, ethics, people-centered design, and social impact. And at Policy Lab, this is part of our ethos and of the makeup of our PIT Consultants Network that includes technical experts, social scientists, gender and human rights specialists, ensuring that program designs reflect both technical and human considerations. Here you can see a picture in the right of our of the graduation of the participants that we had in a generation that was called Ready Data Tour Initiative, focused on the development of data and leadership skills from SMEs in the tourism sector in the state of Jalisco, just for you to take a look at. And the third shift that I want to share with you is going from small pilots to data governance ecosystem. And I think this is consistent with what my colleague Marlene Lamoureux was just sharing in her intervention. Scaling AI requires prior experimentation and the intentional building of trust. So it is important for cities to build data governance frameworks that include, among others, clear data sharing protocols, accountability standards, and public communication channels. And as an example for this point, we work with the Presidency of Colombia and with CAF Development Bank to develop the country's data infrastructure model, governance model, to ensure cross-sector coordination. And we believe this model holds a great potential to be contextualized and deployed at the city level as well. So I'm more than happy to continue telling you more about any of these projects as we continue the conversation.
Gracias, Cristina. Thank you very much for these inputs. I think we can all agree on this, the idea of moving to a more anticipatory governance approach and the need for a more interdisciplinary capacity while we adopt AI in cities and also for the future. So thank you a lot. We'll get back to you in the second round. Now to continue the discussion, now let's move up from Mexico to the United Kingdom to Arup Foresight. George, Arup, you have been working a lot on foresight and AI. So from your perspective, from your foresight perspective, because you're expert on this, which emerging AI capabilities do you think will most disrupt how cities are designed and managed over the next 10, 20 years? And how should city leaders prepare now for that? You have here one city leader, so maybe he's very keen to hear about your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Oscar, and thank you very much, everyone, for listening to me today. It's great to be here to share our thoughts and research on this really important topic. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm from a company called Arup. We're a built environment consultancy. We have a multidisciplinary focus, and we are present in over 80 countries around the world. And within that context, a multidisciplinary firm, I sit within what we call our foresight team, and we're a dedicated function within the business that thinks specifically and solely about the future of the built environment. So we help our teams and our clients imagine and anticipate what that future context might look like, which is of course very important in the context of AI, and we're talking about these transformational changes and how we anticipate what they might mean for our cities. So we've been undertaking, in light of that, we've funded a piece of research called AI for Future Cities, and the focus of the piece of work is to really start to imagine how may our cities change in the near and distant future. So looking sort of 10 to 15 years out. And to do this, we've taken a focus across different disciplines within the city. So we've got one piece on urban planning and design, another on urban energy systems, urban water, transport, nature, our workplaces. And across that, that's given us a very far-reaching understanding about how transformational the technology will be, but also some common threads across that are really applicable to how we manage and govern our cities as well. So if we skip on to the next slide. Hopefully there is one. As part of this, we're undertaking a process that we use in Foresight called horizon scanning. So we're always trying to scan the future context and the future horizon with the best evidence we have today to try and anticipate what changes and trends might be coming down the line in the future. And I think there's been a lot of talk today about AI literacy and legibility, and a really big part of that is how do we communicate this information. So we translate all of these insights into these very neat, digestible cards that explain these types of topics in a very accessible way, both for our teams in Arup, but also for the clients and partners we work with. And across this, I mean, we've heard like bundles of emerging capabilities already today, but you know, we're looking at things like predictive urban flooding systems to better detect when floods may emerge, predicting people flow in our cities and our workplaces to manage spaces for people with neurodiverse requirements and so forth. how we better distribute energy across our cities, and how individual homes might be able to actually use artificial intelligence to sell energy back to the grid, which is something we're seeing already. So we're starting to already see all of these really important emerging capabilities. But I would say, if we skip onto the next slide, that the really important bit here is about a degree of imagination. And what we're trying to do is visualize what an urban future may look like in this future context. Bring these trends together is where we'll really start to see where the transformation takes place. So might personalized transport systems drive new mobility patterns in our cities? Could greater intelligence about the risks facing our properties make assets more uninsurable? Could rapid concept generation help us co-design better with our communities? So all of these things, we're trying to take a step of world building and starting to think about what this future context might look like, and how we prepare for it. I would say, if I had to boil all of our insights down to one of the most kind of consequential disruption for city leaders, I would say, and I think the gentleman from Smart City Council mentioned this earlier in his intervention, is the distinction in this technology versus what we've seen before, where AI can actually take decisions for us through agentic AI. And that's going to create like really significant challenges for how we take decisions as organizations. How do we know that the kind of how a decision has been arrived at? How are we agreeing for the optimizations that we're selecting for? Perhaps one optimization might improve building performance, but at the cost of street level design. And how do we make that trade-off? And are we aware of how that trade-off has been made? I think it's incredibly important. So in terms of what city leaders can do to prepare, in short, I would say, as a foundation, setting the appropriate protocols and guidance. We've heard a lot about that today. Having a very clear view on the outcomes and goals that we want to achieve with the technology. And as a foresight practitioner, I think what's very important is for us to imagine the future scenarios that could unfold and really start to try and anticipate what could be coming down the line and how we prepare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. I think you highlighted several points. First of all, there's a coincidence with what other people have already said about the need to look at different disciplines. I think this is an important point. How to communicate innovations. I think that's also a key area that you mentioned. That is part of how to make reform happen in a way. So that's very important. Thank you so much. And also about the protocols, guidance, and how to imagine the future. I think this is something that an exercise that not everyone does in cities, and that is something that perhaps we should all start thinking about that for the future. Thank you. We'll get back to you for the second round. So now I move last but not least to Corey Gray from the Smart Cities Council. Corey, in your opinion, you have, because of your work, you have a broad experience working with cities across the world. So what does an AI-shaped city look like in different geographical contexts, in your opinion? And what can you tell us about that? And also, I have another question for you. Just let me find it because I lost it. But if you can start with your question.
Thanks, Oscar, and support everyone else's statement. Thanking you and Stefano for all the work you've put in here. Going at the end of the day, I thought, to your point, to cover things off that haven't yet, but what we have, and people are talking about it a lot. Eric Schmidt was in London last week talking about it, is quite clearly the most powerful tool that we've ever created in the history of our species. And so we can do things that we never could do before. I think in a 30-year view forward, it's interesting initially to look 30 years back, which is approximately when the internet became a thing. And just before Carl Sagan died, wrote his last book, The Demon Haunted World, he made the point that we live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, and which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology. And if you look at the top 10 richest people in the world at the moment, 9 of them are Americans in tech. One's Buffett, but he's the greatest investor in the history of humanity and makes his money in there. And we have one Frenchman. Here we go. This is the other point, which is an opportunity. If we scroll to the next slide, I've just put a few points for thought and to prompt questions, I guess, after it. So Edward Wilson really started, as many would know, the whole concept of biophilia, biophilic design. And in the middle of that quote and at the beginning of it are really the challenges that we face. A few weeks ago, I was involved in Doha with a conference about AI and ethics and spirituality, because even the churches that traditionally had the great control over the people now look inadequate compared, even their gods look inadequate compared with some of the technology. It's really become quite an existential challenge for people. So just to, if we go then to the third slide, just to speak briefly to some of George's points, what we have now is the ability to do things we couldn't do before. We can orchestrate at incredible speeds. The changes to the cities that we live in can be fantastic. We can actually start to build cities that make sense. If you look at the great challenges of urban design, I think, you know, what Haussmann did in this city back in the day was highly controversial, and yet now is considered to be one of the great successes in terms of urban planning. So this is the opportunity that we have to restore nature and the human aspects of it. I'd prompt one other question as we go around. We've spent all day saying what we can do with AI. I think the real question for people is, what can't AI do? And in that is the existential question for us as people who want to have agency over technology. What can't it do, and what do we want to be? In terms of urban design, if you think again to building services historically, these days heritage buildings, you have to fit fire systems in that didn't exist when you created Notre Dame, again to be maybe a little topical. Vertical transportation, hopefully none of us are old enough to remember when that came in, but it changed everything about how buildings designed. The rich people used to live on the bottom and the poor people had to get the stairs to the top. And as soon as we had elevators, all the rich people wanted the view. And so what you'll see with buildings with AI is that you'll see eVTOLs, drones. The main modality and mobility of people will be to the tops of buildings. Buildings will turn upside down again. Already, I'm glad to see some colleagues here from the Bay Area. I spend most of my time on the other side from you. I don't want to get into a UC Berkeley, Stanford stoush, but you know, the Waymos and these cars now, the autonomous driving vehicles are a thing. Drones will be a thing in my, you can probably tell from this awful accent that I'm Australian. In Brisbane, Olympics, everyone will be moved around in eVTOLs. This is already done. We're working with the city on that project. How to integrate new technologies and platforms into urban design is incredibly challenging. The other thing that we alluded to earlier is data centers. I think you'll see a move away from mega data centers to micro data centers distributed through city infrastructure. You can get a guy who you might know, Alex Weitzman, who was the ex-CTO at Dell, designed the first 100 mega data centers, and he has now a really interesting project building data centers the size of this that can be distributed into buildings and throughout urban infrastructure rather than these huge things in the desert that are a catastrophic point of failure, as AWS demonstrated to the world the other day. And the other part of urban design is, we touched on it, is the generation of heat from data centers, and the ability to repurpose that energy. Is not always a bad thing to have generated that energy, but we need more intelligent urban planning to put data centers in places where there is a net zero-sum game, let us say, in terms of that energy generation. The last bit before we swing around the table again is, I think we're seeing in the geopolitics of the world today a discussion that we haven't been having, but the critical requirement of energy to power these things. I think we'll get to a point of net zero in terms of emissions fairly simply. The chips, if you talk to Jensen or any of the guys at NVIDIA who really own it, or Huawei, are the other people, and we come to that in a moment. But the chips are becoming more and more efficient. They're more and more cost effective. But in terms of the human aspect of all of this, you know, the 5 biggest cloud companies in the world, none are European, 4 are American, one's Alibaba. Everyone here in government, everyone here in the city is entirely reliant, as per the Sagan quote, on those data centers, on those chip manufacturers. So what I think we need to do, which is what Federico said before, is get inside the box, and there's got to start to be some regulatory discussion around that. If you sit around Santana Row and talk to the people making chips and developing AI, they're even scared of what it's doing in terms of becoming sentient and more. So there's really a vast discussion to be had about the human existential position around this, but also in terms of urban design. I think, you know, a lot will change because of what AI enables.
Thank you very much, Corey, for these insights. I think one of the points that you mentioned is what can AI do for us? I think this is a very important question. Something that we put to see it is not just to adopt AI for the sake of it. There should be a purpose for that. There should be a strategy. Otherwise, we could be creating more problems than actually solving them with AI. So thank you very much for that. So now we move to the second round of questions to our panelists. So I'm going back to Japan, to Mr. Nakamura. So Nakamura, you come from a very, very large city that is always calls people's attention, and everyone, it sets example for many cities around the world, if we can say that. So the question for you is this one: how is Tokyo metropolitan government designing governance frameworks that today are around ethics, data sharing, public trust, to ensure that future AI systems remain safe and inclusive? What are your thoughts about that?
東京都ではですね、先ほどご紹介した AI 戦略におきまして、今、スライドご覧の5つの基本的な方針を掲げて、組織横断でですね、AI 活用を進めているところでございます。で、その中でですね、AI の利活用にあたって留意すべき事項として、次のスライドをお願いします。はい、こちらにですね、掲げております6つの留意事項を挙げております。行政におきましては、特に都民とか事業者の方々から信頼と共感を得るという観点が非常に重要でございまして、AI の利活用にあたりましては、透明性ですね、その AI がどのように機能して、なぜ特定の決定や予測に至ったのか、理解可能な状態にしておくということ、またその情報を可能な範囲で公開するなど、留意事項への対応が都民へ説明されているということがまず一つあります。あと、公平性という観点からは、AI モデルに含まれるバイアスによって、特定の個人や集団が不当な差別を受けたりですとか、あとは不利益を被らないようにすること、このような透明性と公平性と2つをですね、常に留意しながら進めていくこととしております。このようにですね、留意事項を明確にすることによって、倫理の観点ですね、あと都民の信頼に応えるというところも、ございますし、あとオープンイノベーションの推進によりまして、民間事業者が行政データを活用して、AI を用いて新たなサービスを創出できるように、データの整備や提供が進むというふうにも考えてございます。でなお、技術の進化や社会情勢の変化に適切に対応できるようにですね、私どもの戦略は適宜見直しを行っていこうというふうに考えておりまして、またこの東京都の取り組みにつきましては、私どもの東京都の中の自治体だけではなくてですね、全国の日本の全国の自治体にも共有しまして、日本全体の課題解決に役立っていきたいというふうに考えております。ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございました。Yes, I needed to practice. Yes. So now it's Marlene, back to Germany, to Gelsenkirchen. I will make it. Okay, yes, but we'll talk about that during the networking. Yes. Okay, the question for you is this one: as AI becomes more embedded in public services and urban safety, what potential unintended consequences or societal risks do you foresee, such as, for example, privacy concerns and digital exclusion? How is the city preparing to manage this while keeping residents engaged and confident?
So thank you, Oscar. And in Gelsenkirchen, we see great opportunities in using AI for public services, but also some very real risks that cities must manage carefully. One concern that you mentioned is digital exclusion. So smaller or less resourced cities often cannot afford to develop their own AI solutions to build up the capacity or to provide the capacity building, the education to the people who work in the public administration. And the risk is to really become dependent on single vendors in this case. And this can be prevented. So in Gelsenkirchen, we have learned a lot from building our urban data platform on an open source basis. This makes us independent from proprietary systems and allows us to collaborate with other cities. For example, we recently joined an association of cities that co-develop a shared urban data platform. And this means we can share both costs and use cases. And this is exactly what we want to do with the capacity that I just explained that we want to build up with Urban KI. We want to extend this principle to AI applications and capacities, building a joint infrastructure that provides safe, open, and reusable standard solutions for many cities while sharing the costs. And a second risk could be generative AI. So there's currently a lot of hype, but in public administration, we have to be cautious. Gen AI can produce unreliable results, and it raises issues of transparency, energy use, and dependency on large suppliers. And we take a differentiated approach here. We use Gen AI moderately where it makes sense, for example, to support human expertise and to make processes more efficient. For instance, one of the prototypes that we are developing with other cities is a language model that is based on Gen AI that answers questions about geodata and specific municipal services for people who cannot see, who are blind. But we would not use Gen AI to take decisions. Third, regarding privacy, there is a risk of re-identification, which means that individuals can possibly be identified by combining seemingly anonymous data with other data sources. And in our project, we work in trusted data spaces where cities and research partners can test AI without losing control of their data. So sensitive information never leaves the local domain. For example, we are testing AI models that analyze traffic flow data of a public transport provider inside a trusted data space. This means the data stays within the public transport data infrastructure and only aggregated results are shared with partners. And this allows us to improve the mobility service while ensuring compliance with GDPR. Well, and finally, to keep citizens engaged and confident, we communicate openly through press formats, podcasts, roadshows, and our annual conference on urban AI. And in these formats, we explain what AI is used for, what benefits it brings, and how we protect the people's privacy. Thank you.
Dankeschön. Yes, at least something. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think I have a follow-up question for you, but for the Q&A on what you just said. But it was very interesting, and also I see a lot of coincidences with previous discussion and interventions. For instance, on the need on the joint infrastructure and also on the communications open with citizens. So we'll get back to perhaps more in depth within the Q&A. Thank you very much. So from Germany, we are traveling, but not so far. Now we're going back to the Slovak Republic, to Jurek. In the Slovak Republic, I think we have documented that there are already some projects going on in Košice, for example, or that are advancing on local experimentation with AI. Our question for you is, how is the country, Slovak Republic, ensuring that all these pilots happening in cities like that are evolving to more scalable nationwide models, particularly for smaller municipalities, that they can also use them? What are the measures are taken for that, while still maintaining ethical standards and inclusion in these projects?
Yes, thank you. So yes, indeed, there are many pilots that are taking place in Slovakia. These are rather isolated incidents, although there are, of course, extremely positive incidents, and we're happy that they're happening. And some of them are really employing I would say maybe large part of the full potential of AI in the respective verticals. So we're extremely happy for this. And what we are still not seeing completely is their integration across the board. So integration to different verticals than within that that individual municipality. But how to ensure that these are really scalable and nationwide models? These are efforts that are happening from bottom up, right? So from our perspective, we are extremely happy that they are happening. We are happy to promote them as much as possible to raise awareness, because it's a very good thing that we have these front runners that are able to mobilize resources, human capital, and also financial resources to make the first step and make even first couple of steps, because some of the cities are really quite advanced. We have a municipality or a larger city that is using also a wide range of cameras that are spread across the city to manage different areas, such as mobility, static or dynamic, security, etc. So these are all examples that we learn from them, which is very, very positive. But from our point of view, I think we would be addressing two categories. One would be the sort of bottom up or the customizable or tailor-made, where we want to learn from them. We want others to learn from them. So in a very much sort of a sandbox approach, we want to extract the positive experience, and we would like to feed this into the national approach, especially in terms of the regulation and in terms of the let's say the protective arm of our initiative that would be sort of governing or helping govern the initiatives that happen locally. But then we also want to learn from it and employ it from the other perspective that would be fit for all, or the top-down approach, where we, as already mentioned in this platform, the main or the end game here is to produce solutions that are scalable in the sense that they're easy to replicate across the board, right? So they can be easily replicated and fit into the to the rest of the municipalities, of course, depending on the size, depending on the applicability to their specific situations. Some would probably work better regionally, but this is something that we have also learned the hard way. So not all pilots should be probably invested in full. I think we're past the point where the pilots serve us to get this, let's say, the benefit of the first experience or the first mover experience. So what we would have probably in some cases done a little bit differently, introduce a rule that the pilots should be supported once there is at least some sort of a business case for the replication and for their upscaling. It was already mentioned here, but we had a very recent experience, especially on the discovery phase. So understanding what is the specific problem. And I understand that AI will, of course, help in this phase as well. But currently we were self-reliant and we had to rely on our own internal capacity. But what we did as a government is we implemented a measure of over 18 hackathons that we did for the public sector. And these were sprints for smaller municipalities, for different ministries. And it was absolutely fantastic. And I think the real benefit came already from the pre-hackathon stage, where we worked with the public sector representatives to help them understand what is their problem and what sort of data, of course, and what sort of other assets they have at their disposal in solving this problem, right? Now, in retrospect, I would probably include in the rules of the hackathons that we would support more the solutions that are replicable, because some, of course, probably will not be replicable. But still, I think we have, from this experience of 18 hackathons, if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about it, happy to share the full story. But we managed to execute them all, and we have already quite a lot of solutions that have been implemented. We created different safeguards, definitely not to lose the momentum. We had the money in place, so we did fulfill the promise of implementation. But this was really a very interesting example on keeping or ensuring that we support pilots that are scalable and replicable. So just to sum it up, these two approaches, bottom up and top down, and ensuring or putting the safeguard of sort of a non-negotiable rule that pilots should have a case for upscaling and replication. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jurek, and also for summarizing the intervention for me. That's very kind. Thank you. Yeah, I think the idea of not all pilots should be in Barcelona. I think there should be a business case. I think that's very important. We tend to believe that all pilots should be scaled up, but that's perhaps not the case. But we should have some ideas on how to evaluate that, to determine which ones yes and which ones no. So thank you for those inputs. I'd like to also to introduce our Deputy Director, Nadine Ahmad, who has just joined us, who will participate in the closing session. Welcome, Nadine. Okay, to continue the discussion now from the Slovak Republic, we move to Mexico City, to Cristina again. Cristina, I think you already shared your information on what you have been working on in the PITI lab in Mexico. But also you have been working on fairness and gender bias, that all this research that you have on this area shows how easily AI can deepen inequality. And this is important. And so the question is, as AI becomes embedded in core urban services, from mobility to social support, what forward-looking safeguards or participatory methods should cities adopt now to anticipate and prevent harmful outcomes before they scale? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Oscar. And I think this is an excellent question, and I definitely agree with its framing, because bias in AI is not a technical flaw. It's a reflection of social inequality embedded into data, and most importantly, into design choices. Cities are somewhat vulnerable because their data sets from mobility, social benefits, policing, or others can often reflect historical exclusion and often lack forms of interoperability across departments, which is something that has already also been shared by my colleagues. And through our experience at PIT Policy Lab, we believe there are 3 forward-looking safeguards. There are many, but I'm going to share specifically 3 forward-looking safeguards that cities and local governments can start adopting today. The first one is participatory design as a foundational layer. Cities should embed participatory mechanisms early in the AI lifecycle through co-design workshops, citizen data panels, community review boards. We tested this approach with the local government of Guanajuato in Mexico when creating an AI roadmap aligned to UNESCO's recommendation on the ethics of AI through a series of workshops that involve different communities and sectors in defining its priorities. And this is relevant because it not only helped us build ownership within the initiative, but also to build rapport and legitimacy for this program. Then the second point is the importance of bias audits before scale. Before a city expands or scales an algorithmic system, it is recommended to conduct pre-deployment audits, evaluating the data sets and models against gender, geographic, and socioeconomic biases. There are open, useful tools. We were happy to share some of the examples that we have, and we believe that these audits should be as routine as environmental impact assessment. We had an interesting example, the Equitable AI initiative that was conducted by our team together with an international consortium and with the support of former USAID and the Ministry of the local Ministry of Education to identify and mitigate gender bias in a local government initiative to prevent school dropout. And beyond the technical aspects of the program, it's important to note that we also had a series of workshops and trainings on gender, ethics, and human rights, so that the team at the ministry would be better equipped to deploy this initiative. As part of this program, we also created an ethical AI guide, a self-assessment checklist for the deployment of AI initiatives in the education sector, and a policy recommendations report that I think you might be interested into reading, because I think the insights are very transferable to any kind of local government trying to get into these kind of projects. And it's all available in our website. And the third point is institutionalized accountability. We believe that safeguards have a better chance of working if they are institutionalized. So our recommendations is for cities to establish AI ethics committees with the power to pause or review deployments where risks are detected. And these bodies should include civil society and academic representatives, not just government officials. As an example, this reminded me about the FAIRLAC initiative by IDB in Latin America, the Inter-American Development Bank, I was part of CMIND's team in Fair like Jalisco, which in its governance structure developed a multidisciplinary AI ethics committee that would oversee the ideation, development, and deployment of use cases in areas like health, education, and gender. So in some, yeah, I think fairness is not, fairness in AI is not a technical glitch. It's achieved through democratic design. So it's important to bring those that are being impacted by technology into the process of deciding how it is built, used, and governed, including indigenous population, which I think it's another topic for another whole discussion, and it's currently being addressed by UNESCO during the revision of their AI readiness assessment methodology. And as soon as this revision of the assessment comes out, I'll be more than happy to share the results with this community of practice.
Muchas gracias, Cristina. That one.
Gracias, Oscar.
That one I know. Cristina, thank you. All these points about the participatory design, the buy and audit before scalability and institutionalized accountability, I think they are key. And these are points that we'll certainly took into account while revising the note that we prepared for this roundtable. Thank you very much, Cristina. So once again from Mexico back to the UK, to Arup, to George. I mean, the work of Arup is to help cities to think about risk and opportunities with AI. This is one important thing. So what have you learned about translating these long-term insights into practical implementable strategies for clients that must balance ambition with today's technical and governance constraints?
Thank you, Oscar. And yes, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to kind of revisit a point I made in my previous intervention. But I think fundamentally, before you start strategizing about where you want to be in the long term, I think at the very start of any process, and absolutely foundational, is to align on the key outcomes that you want to achieve. And I would say what's also important in that context, they should be agnostic to the technology itself. What do we want to achieve for our places? What do we want to achieve for the people that live in them? What do we want to have as our planetary outcomes? And that should underpin everything that happens. And part of that should be a shared vision for how that looks. So how do we co-design and collectively agree on what those principles should be? Once you've done that, it's then incumbent on us to set the protocols for the deployment of AI. What are our absolute non-negotiables, or we won't deploy the technology? And what products will we deploy? Is there particular parts in the design process or life cycle that we won't use AI solutions? We believe a human should be involved in that decision. So I think that's the kind of foundational point. And then next, I think as a foresight practitioner, I think very important is to try and make the future tangible and think about the future context in a way that's that invokes a degree of imagination and, as we spoke about earlier, is done in a way that informs people and makes people aware of the potential future outcomes. A phrase we often mention in foresight is you can't plan for something that you can't imagine. And that's something that we really try to bring to our work when we're thinking about the future of artificial intelligence in our cities. And one way we do this is through some specific workshop engagements that we've designed using the insights from our AI research and the cards that I mentioned earlier. We use these with our clients from city leadership to leadership within our own organization and to specific project teams. And each of these exercises is designed to both develop a degree of imagination, but also to test some of the assumptions that we're making. So, how might one of these AI trends or applications help us meet the goals that we set at the start of the process? But also, what might be the unforeseen consequences or hidden costs that might actually undermine the goals we set at the start? So, for instance, we've been speaking to clients who are looking to decarbonize their water system, for instance. And as part of that, they're looking to deploy sensors to better understand how they can generate efficiencies in their water network. Within that process, there's clearly a trade-off between the embodied carbon within the sensors themselves against the environmental savings they would make through using AI in that space. So we're always kind of like balancing this trade-off between the solution we're deploying and then some of the costs that we're going to incur. Similarly, if we're going to employ autonomous solutions in public transport, what might that mean for some of the equity outcomes that we're trying to achieve? How may someone who's from a marginalized group or community feel about using that solution if they're on a public transport provider with no driver or assistance? So always we're thinking about these unintended consequences and hidden costs that we've discussed before. And I think maybe I'll kind of close by just saying one of the things that we try to emphasize is the distinction between how AI can help us do improve what we do currently today. So, you know, how might it deliver efficiencies on what we already know and what's already in our frame of reference, versus what are the kind of completely new things that it might allow us to do, or the kind of assumptions it might upend. So if we're working with a large university campus, okay, it might allow them to enhance their operations on campus, but how might it completely upend and change our perception of what education is? How might it completely change what a campus experience and living on a university campus mean in 10 to 15 years time? So thank you, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, George, for these insights. Very interesting. We'll get back to you with some questions because I have one for you. So, but before that, let's move to our last panelist, Corey Gray. Corey, as well, from your broad experience around the world, what potential unintended consequences could arise from the integration of AI into urban development, including vulnerable groups?
Thanks. This will sound a little bit like we'd coordinated it, but one of the things that I wanted to touch on was education. I think if we look at generative AI, and let's say we go to the middle of the 18th century, the Industrial Revolution comes around and we start structured education, which was really to train people to think convergently and to replicate reliably certain tasks and certain modalities of thought. I think what's going to happen in the next 15 years in education is that AI will take that out. We can't compete with generative AI in terms of information organization and processing. And the bit that AI can't do is where we'll step back in, and divergent thinking, I think, will become a premier part of the entire education processes for humans. If you take no data and ask it no question, it will give you no answer. But a human can be born, learn to love, make language, write music, hug people, tell stories. We're inherently creative, and yet we've created a paid vocational training system. I think it's not fair to call it, in many cases, an education system. And I think that will completely change. I think that the jobs of the future in corporations will be things like, I think for the first time ever, we need philosophers in companies. I think there will be corporate philosophers, there will be corporate ethicists, there will be corporate storytellers. The sorts of jobs that humans will have will be the jobs we should have had for the last hundreds and hundreds of years, but we've trained ourselves to go down coal mines or make ships go across the ocean. If you look at some of the higher paid people in the world today, if you went to the end of the Second World War and everyone was walking off the battlefield and said in 4 generations, what will be the highest paid people? They would have said lawyers, politicians, doctors, not Taylor Swift and The Rock and Lionel Messi. It would have been inconceivable to think that a football player would be one of the highest paid people on earth, and yet here we are. But we crave narrative, that's what humans are. And so I think one of the unintended consequences is a positive consequence, is that we'll rediscover our identity as a species. I think it's a really incredible opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves in a way that for 260 years we haven't. In more direct impact type stuff, an example came up listening to Christina. We've been working on a project which you would know, the Durango for Market Digital City project, helping out with the capital structuring of that. But one of the great outcomes of these micro data centers is that gas pipeline from Houston was flaring off $70 million an hour of gas, and with a micro data center now, that gas is going to be utilized to run AI processing. So again, that's a net zero outcome in terms of energy. It's an incredibly fantastic project and something really interesting to be working on. All the bad actor stuff, is a given. AI is going to be used to hack systems, hack governments, and the single point of failure with the hyperscalers will be a problem for all time. And the sheer inequity of wealth, you know, NVIDIA has a market cap bigger than this country's GDP. And this country has $4 trillion of debt, and NVIDIA has $100 billion of cash in the bank and no debt. So the negotiations between companies and governments are going to become tensioned in a profound way, and there's going to need to be regulatory intervention just to have control of that. And I think the same way, if you look at nuclear power and then mapping the human genome, which were probably and before the internet, the other two great technological achievements of the last 100 years, we'll need a framework like the non-proliferation treaty that came in with nuclear. People are going to have to declare what and how research they're doing and to what consequence. We don't want people cloning our children, so we had to make laws to stop that happening. The same will have to happen in AI. But I think there's a lot of positive things that will come out of it. There'll be lots of jobs, but they'll be all in compliance and making sure that people use AI properly. And like cyber is a $270 billion a year industry because bad actors try to hack everything, and then so there's 10 million jobs in cyber in the world now. So
thank you, Corey, for sharing your thoughts about the future, which is very the topic of this session. Thank you very much. I'm just looking at the time, but we're running a little bit late, but still I would like to open the floor for questions. I see there are two already there, but please raise your flags if you have some questions. I do have questions, but yours are more important now. So I will start with the gentlemen there that have their flags up for a while. I will start with Keith Thorpe, with the expert, and then I will move to the...
Right, thank you, Oscar. And it's been a really fascinating day. I mean, looking at AI for future cities, I think it's an appropriate place to raise the cybersecurity threats to AI and smart cities. The rapid adoption of AI continues to introduce complex cybersecurity risks that traditional practices may not sufficiently address. AI systems can malfunction when exposed to untrustworthy data and can be vulnerable to malware and ransomware attacks. So it would be interesting to know what cities are doing to try and mitigate some of these risks. And is more guidance needed to help build resilience on the impact of these risks and minimize recovery time? It occurred to me that unless it's already been covered at previous smart cities and AI sessions, to perhaps make this a topic on how we can ensure that smart cities address these matters in a future sustainable growth roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kit. Now the university, and if you could please tell us to whom the question is addressed as well.
Thank you, Oscar. I just want to, first of all, congratulate you and the organizers for this conference, because I think everything that we heard today reflects OECD's motto, better policies for better lives. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Again, the panelists, I think, have amazingly covered a range of issues, including one point I was going to raise. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had the Nobel Prize in Economics announced. Professor Philippe Aghion mentioned about the power of creative destruction as being the source of economic growth. So listening to the presentations today, I was thinking, are we focusing too much on what AI can do to cities? And are we missing the question in terms of how and what cities should do in order to shape and control this process of creative destruction? Is there anything they can do? Do they have the power to do? Or is it only big city regions? Like I'm sitting next to Bay Area Council. So big city regions where there is that kind of a concentration of AI, or cities like London and Paris, only such big mega cities, are they only the ones who are in a position to engage in that kind of a question even? So are are we kind of missing the point otherwise? So that's number one. And number two is, again, I think number of people mentioned, especially our colleague from Gelsenkirchen mentioned, I think that's a very interesting point. I think within countries, we can see that there are AI islands and AI deserts. So not all cities and towns have similar kind of AI readiness capacity. So I think partnership working can be very, very important. If you are lucky enough to be part of Greater Paris metropolitan region, perhaps I think you are in an advantage. But if you are a small town or secondary city, for example, far away from capital city, so to what extent this kind of partnership approach can help to bridge that kind of gap. And the final point is we haven't heard much the word culture throughout today. Of course, here we can think in terms of culture as informal norms in the society, which help us along with the formal systems and institutions. In that case, again, going back to another Nobel Prize winner last week, Joel Merkier, who talked about the culture of growth. So if I use the expression culture in that sense, how do you promote that kind of culture of growth through this process of AI? What kind of institutional arrangements are needed in order to harness this new renaissance, if you like, a new enlightenment? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Israel.
Hi, Sharon from Israel. Sharon. So I'm concerned about the smaller cities. We've discussed that the larger cities have abilities, skills, funding, but what about the smaller cities? And we've mentioned them a bit in a few projects, but how do we make sure that the gap doesn't expand between those that have the abilities and access to the human capital and the technology and those who don't? And my question is, as government, what is our responsibility? So we discussed funding, that was very clear, and regulation and making sure that it doesn't prohibit the innovation. But also, what other mechanisms or platforms must we adapt to help the smaller cities not to stay behind? So that's my question, and for anyone who's relevant, because it's relevant for both government and regional, and so it's an open question.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for that question. Any other one? Yeah, do you have a question, Corey? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to speak to that. In our organization, your point is valid. For the big cities, the pressure is everyone moves because that's where the resources are. Everyone thinks America's mega cities. It's 18,500 little towns in the middle of nowhere. There's only 9 US cities with over 1 million people in them. And I think the world forgets that. So we have in our organization, at least, and earlier in Mexico came up the discussion of First Nations people. This is a really important process. In Australia, a First Nations person will live 31 years less than the national average. It's a scandal for a first world country. You're 200 times more likely to be murdered. So within our organization, we've established task forces globally to provide the specific skills and as a for-purpose organization, democratize the IP, not keep it as a plaything to monetize. And I think that's all over the world, from Turkey to what we're doing in Morocco, in Africa in particular. The principles are very different in that small environment, and in the 10 million plus cities around the world, they play at a different scale as well. So there's a groundswell of people wanting to do something about it, because we don't want all those people ending up in cities. It's very burdensome for big cities, and it's not much fun for the people.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other panelists would like to react to the questions? To this?
I have some insights. I'm I'm raising my hand. Thank you. First, for the cybersecurity question, I think this is a very important remark. Actually, last week we had a workshop in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs with the leaders of the Oxford Capacity Readiness, Cybersecurity Readiness Capacity Model. I think it's a very interesting model that really can shape the city's thinking and process on how to embed cybersecurity as a transversal key piece in any kind of AI strategy. That for the cybersecurity part. Then I think some of the questions touched around the challenges between big cities, small cities. And I think this takes us to a very important point to the work that we do in Mexico and Latin America that has to do with recognizing inequalities. We know there's a hype and there's excitement about the use of artificial intelligence, but the reality of some of our local municipalities is that there's no electricity, there's no internet access. There are many other challenges that are still on the government priorities before actually starting to think on AI readiness. So often when we speak to them, and that's why the focus of the initiative that we have with the British Embassy was on digital transformation and not necessarily on AI readiness, because the digital transformation is much more complex and speaks to context, to culture, and to management change, where technology is like, I think, a part and a relevant part of it, but it's a tool. What really matters is how we work with the people to understand what are the challenges they're facing, and then how we can design for specific tools that can help them do their work. And I think that this connects really well to one of the comments that someone in the audience made when earlier when we were about to present to start our panel, because we've had many, but there was a very particular experience where people in the government will tell us, we are excited about having an AI system that works, but we are worried that we are shooting ourselves in the foot if we all of a sudden go from knowing that there's one case of school dropout and going to 5,000 cases of school dropout. Like, how do we, how can we actually serve that population with the same amount of resources? Because that's not going to change. The only thing that changed is that we had an AI tool to detect for that. And in a narrative, in communication, that doesn't necessarily look well, because instead of saying, oh, the government is very innovative and it's using AI, it's, oh, the government is very inefficient because now we know that instead of one case, we have 5,000. So communication, I think, becomes key, and it should, and it's often overlooked. And communication often focuses on the technology and not necessarily on the people that's being served by these technological tools. So I think this is important to notice. Then for the partnership piece, I think this is definitely key, forming partnerships, not only at the local government, but looking outside of the box and going outside to look for similar experiences that can provide insights into what worked there and why. And then if we go back to the culture and context question, I think we would be surprised to learn that even though there are so many differences between countries, across city levels, I think there are somewhat, there can be there could be a cross-comparative analysis of the challenges that public administrations are facing. We would find that there are similar set of issues that there can be solutions that have already been implemented elsewhere, and then you have all those failures that you don't want to repeat, and all the learnings and positive outcomes that you do want to scale. So, and here for the context piece, it reminded me, we had an amazing project with the Feminist AI Network that was focused on understanding who were the women working in data labeling in Latin America. And what we realized is that while in India, data labeling provides women for economic independence and sort of a status in working in this space, in Latin America, it's contested by family members. It's challenged. Like they think that women are just like playing on their phones. They not necessarily own the devices that they're working from. They're expected to provide the income to the family. And there are a series of interesting cultural norms that play into the role of women working in the data labeling space. So definitely, I think context and culture are paramount in anything that we do and are essential for any kind of initiative to work in terms of ideation, but beyond in implementation and most importantly in evaluation to see what happened with what we did with our initiatives. Thank you.
Gracias, Cristina. Very, very interesting. I think we could spend here another hour talking about these issues at least. So I can see around the table, you cannot perhaps, but I can see that there's agreement about that. So yes, but before closing this session, I would like to give the floor to conclude and for some final remarks to a colleague from the Public Governance Directorate, Carlos Santiso. He's a senior counselor on global partnerships for digital government and artificial intelligence. And as you already know, some of you mentioned earlier, this directorate published earlier on this report on governing with AI. So we would like to see what the conclusions of that report, the implications that it has for cities now and the future. So Carlos, the floor is yours, and thank you for joining.
No, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Oscar, also for letting us share with you some of the insights and thoughts we have from a sister department that looks at these issues at the level of central governments. And a lot of the things that you've been discussing resonates quite a lot with a lot of the work that we've been doing. And we basically have been looking at how our governments are using AI to improve a number of processes. We looked at 200 case studies, most of them pilots. And that's an important thing because, you know, there's a lot of difficulty to scale pilots beyond the piloting themselves. That looked at 12 core government functions and how that has been deployed from risk management to public procurement to civil services and HR functions in 80 countries. And one of the big conclusions we have in this report that was published about last month was that the more that you govern with AI, the more you need to govern AI in the public sector. And I think a lot of the things that you've been sharing in this session in particular, but also earlier in the morning is really what you were saying, what AI can do, but what we can do with AI and how cities can govern AI in a better way. So if we go to the next slide here, maybe one of the things we've been looking at and that we're currently piloting with Korea is how you look at the governance of AI in the public sector, but really putting a number of things, let's say, in order, like to look at the different, you know, like in the OECD, we like frameworks, no? You know, to order our minds and to simplify complex issues, but also to make simple things a little bit more complicated as well. So one of the important things I would like to mention there is that one of the issues that we've been discussing is the issue of trust, no? Trust between government and citizens, and how AI is looking into ways of improving that trust, but also poses some risk and therefore some of the issues that we need to look at. And there are maybe three main issues that we looked at in the report is what are the guardrails that are required to make sure that the way you deploy AI is done in a responsible way, but what are also the enablers that you need to also to put in place so that that deployment is also strategic and creates value for people, which is very important. And then the levels of engagement and the different actors you need to engage with. And I think a lot of the discussion we've had this afternoon in particular is quite important for cities, but maybe looking at sort of guardrails in particular, let me mention three of them. The first one is really about having sure that you know why you want AI to resolve. What's the problem you're really looking at, and what's your strategic vision, whether it's about improving the efficiency of public administrations. And I think also Mayor Boulard mentioned some of those in the case of Paris, whether it's about the effectiveness of public policies, especially social policies and social welfare, or whether it's more responsible public services, or whether it's more integrity in public resource management. But the goal, I mean, the purpose needs to be really clearly laid out. The second thing is also making sure that you also have frameworks in place that measure the value for money of those deployments. What is actually the cost benefit, and what's some people have mentioned the business case that you have, so that you want to invest resources, and very few governments are really looking at return on investment of these applications, and though that needs to be really factored in more early on in the process, but also continuously throughout the deployment of those. And the third thing is really about the regulatory sort of rules and protocols that were mentioned in many ways. I think having protocols for ex-ante, for example, ex-ante impact assessment is very important. Having clarity of rules in transparency requirements is also quite important, also because most of the applications of AI in the public sector tends to be high risk, especially in the social area. And in Europe, the legislation put the AI public sector AI use cases as high risk cases and therefore subject to more requirements. But a lot of cities are also quite innovative in that sense in terms of having open registries of public sector algorithms like Amsterdam, Barcelona, and a few other cities. Then quickly also in terms of the enablers that we've been looking at and that governments are putting slowly into a place is there are a number of them. I mean, probably skills and talent is the one that is most recurring and that is quite problematic also for cities, but also that requires in terms of thinking about how you want to procure your AI systems, whether you want to deploy AI systems in-house or whether you want to procure those to big techs or small techs, including startups, with which you want to have partnerships with. For example, the government of France, looking at our colleague here from France, is working very closely with Mistral to develop AI solutions within the public administrations. But the issue there is that depending on how you want to procure AI, you'll need different skills, but you'll need also the skills to know exactly what you want AI for to start with. But let me emphasize one of the enablers that has been discussed quite a bit here is about making sure you have the right data. I mean, good AI depends on good data at the end of the day, and there's a number of issues there in terms of quality of the data. But in informal settlements, for example, in cities, people don't necessarily generate the data footprint that will be able to be captured in automatized systems, and that creates exclusions. But you also need the digital public infrastructure so that government entities share data amongst themselves. And that's not easy, and probably you have also some of these challenges. But the issue of data and data governance and data infrastructure is quite central to these enablers. And just to conclude here quickly about some of the insights we got from this report that I'll invite you to look at and to inspire. The engagement issue is quite important for cities because you have a number of governance challenge in terms of how different levels of government will interact amongst themselves to deploy AI. For example, how national governments, and I think we were the case of Slovakia, was also developing tools for subnational governments and municipalities to roll out AI and have economies of scales. And there's issues around horizontal collaboration between municipalities, in particular in the metropolitan areas, where that also needs to be addressed. But this is quite important because at the end of the day, people are expecting integrated, personal, proactive services, no matter who they come from, and therefore the integration of the levels of government are quite important. The last thing, and the important thing also in terms of levels of engagement, the importance of making sure that there's human agencies throughout the system, but also that residents and citizens are involved in the development, deployment, and the oversight of those systems, including have means of recourses in case they feel that the systems are biased against some of their interests and some of their rights. And I think there are also cities, and for example, the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights have done a lot of work around some of these issues about the means of redress that people need to have access to in case of they consider that there's been some misuse. And I think that was already the case in The Hague with a legal case a couple of years ago that was quite important. Thank you again, and happy to discuss more.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I think this is an excellent way to finish this session with these remarks for governing with AI. And I think we can continue the discussion later on during the networking activity that we have if you join us. So with this, I would like to conclude the last session of the roundtable on smart cities and inclusive growth. It's been a marathonic day. But before we finally close, I would like to give the floor back to our co-host, the Ministry of Land Infrastructure and Transport, MOLIT, for some closing remarks. So, Mr. Don Halley, you have the floor.
All right, it's almost done. I guess we can feel our eyes getting sparkling and shining. Just kidding. Okay, let me start. Dear colleagues and partners, I'm Dongha Lee from the MOLIT of Korea. It's my great honor to deliver the closing remark. As we conclude the 5th OECD Roundtable on smart cities and inclusive growth, held under the theme of advancing smart cities through AI, I would like to express my sincerely gratitude to all participants for your active engagement and dedication throughout today's discussion. My special thanks go to Mr. Nadim Ahmad, Deputy Director of OECD, and all OECD colleagues for hosting this meaningful event. I also extend my deep appreciation to UN Habitat and the German Federal Ministry for Housing, Urban Development and Building for their generous support. Today, we have shared valuable insights on the use of AI in smart cities, on how AI can promote sustainable urban development, on the institutional and governance foundations needed for AI adoption, and on how cities are preparing for the future together with AI. This roundtable has been meaningful opportunity to exchange experiences and visions from different countries and to explore concrete ways to make urban innovation through AI a reality. Now, the integration of AI and cities is no longer a choice. It is a necessity. Yet, for AI to become a true driver of urban innovation, we must focus not only on technology itself, but also on trust and inclusion that put people at the center. Challenges such as data privacy, digital exclusion, and regulatory barriers cannot be solved through short-term discussions alone. They required continuous and practical cooperation among all of us. I sincerely hope that today's roundtable will serve as a starting point for such cooperation, and that the insights and ideas we have shared today will help bring meaningful change to your cities. I wish you all good health, continued success, and safe travels at home. Thank you very much. And then the last word, let's continue this journey together. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Hansamida. So now just to close, our Deputy Director, Nadim, for some final remarks.
Thank you, and thank you, I.S.A. Dongha, for your fantastic closing remarks. It makes my life an awful lot easier in terms of the remarks I have to make, because you've said an awful lot of the things that have been written down for me by my team. And it also means I don't have to be disingenuous and pretend, for example, I've been sitting here listening in, and I deeply regret not doing that, because those of you who do know me know that this is one of my favorite meetings at the OECD. And I really regret not being part of the conversation, because this is a really important piece of work. And you've all said it in the very short time that I've been here listening in, you've all said exactly why it's so important. I mean, for me, this is a network that brings together a whole range of fantastic ideas in a really critical space. And this sharing of information, whether you're a large city or a medium-sized city or a small city, I think is absolutely crucial to the discussion that we're having. And this network is really invaluable to that. So thank you, all of you, for being part of this conversation. Thank you to MOLIT for, of course, supporting us in this journey. Thank you to UN Habitat for being strong partners. And thank you, of course, to the German Ministry for Housing, Urban Development and Buildings, who've been also a central part of this particular conversation. For me, like I said, the sharing of information is a really critical element of all of this. There are other, I think, outcomes that have come through from this conversation you've been having today. They are all in my notes here, but the one that I wanted to pick up on very quickly was this one about data. And this was certainly the point that you made in the closing remarks. I think that's also a really important part of the conversation. You'll be aware, of course, that we're also looking to actively engage in this space and begin to develop, I think, these bubbling best practices across all these different spaces and bring that information to the table to allow other cities to take giant leaps forward. You know, we see, for example, an awful lot of cities that are already pioneering in this space and do some fantastic, amazing things. But for us, what we want to do is facilitate other cities to be able to make that big step and that giant leap forward by leveraging and piggybacking on the fantastic work that we've seen already emerging around many, many of the cities. Now, to support that, I'm going to close just by also raising a new activity that we have under this broader umbrella, being supported by the German Agency for International Cooperation, GIZ. And we're now going to start looking at helping cities analyze their readiness and capacity for AI adoption. So we'd like to invite all the cities around here today, sitting around the table, and others, of course, to work with us as being perhaps guinea pigs, or at least to proof test some of the work that we want to engage in that space. The idea is to develop a toolkit and to pilot that toolkit with you all. But again, it's as a process of demonstrating to others what can be done and making sure that the value that we see in this group, I think, really does permeate way beyond the constituency that we have here. So thank you all again. And I promise, I really hope that the next time we meet, I will be able to sit through the whole meeting. And then when I do the closing remarks, I'll be able to do them with an awful lot more sincerity, because of course I really missed not being able to do that today. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nadine, and we really hope you will join us next year for the roundtable. And just to conclude, I just would like to say a big thank you to my colleagues who helped us to organize this roundtable. They are seated at the back. It's Mana, Nanami, and Hana. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank the interpreters for their work to Japanese and finally to all of you for making the trip to be with us and for sharing your experiences. Perhaps the time for you to intervene was so short, but it was very nice to see that everyone was accepting our invitation to join the roundtable. So if this was a success, it's thanks to you for all that.